everything's set up.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the September 6, 2022 Planning and Zoning Commission of Chesapeake Beach, Maryland. I would like to call the roll. I've already called it to order, so it looks like we have everybody here. All are present, except we have Kathleen Baralt, Vice Chair, who is virtual tonight. Better than not having her at all. So thank you for joining us, Kathleen. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, it's a little soft, but I can hear you.
My mic is on. Am I better if I lean into it?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Probably all of you can hear me better too, because I've got a funny throat going here. Okay, so this is an interesting evening because we're actually going to change the agenda around a little bit. Now, the agenda, as you can, if you all don't have a copy, they are in the back of the room. So anybody who's in the audience who'd like to get one, please do so. The agenda is has got a lot of recommendations that our planning administrator here, Mr. Jakubiak, has put together from a workshop that we had last month. And the recommendations, most of them are derived from our amendments that we are going to try and pass tonight and move forward to the town council. There are two amendments, or there are two recommendations here that go beyond what they need for our amendments for the town council that we want to deliver this particular meeting. And those two are number E and F. So if everybody can look on their agenda and see E and F. E and F, one is design standards for townhouses and multifamily units, and the other one is findings of compatibility. Those two items, I would like to move to the end of the agenda and put it right in front of or right above number 7, public comments. I feel it's imperative that we get through the amendments that we have been working on for many, many months now, and we need to hone in just on those. So that would be recommendation A through D and G through I. And then, of course, then we have also the zoning map we're going to bring forward, and also the other amendments that we've been working on for, again, it seems like forever. So anyway, that is what I would like to do as far as changing up the agenda tonight. Does anybody else have anything they would like to change about the agenda tonight or amend on the agenda tonight? Do I have a motion? I'm sorry.
Yes, I would like to motion to move the table, text amendment number 11, to the very last.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, Kathleen. I would like to move text amendment 11 to the last agenda item.
Are you saying before or after E and F?
I'm looking for E and F. in
E and
my-
F. Or right after D, actually.
I agree with, yeah, I think the table should go after E and F.
Well, actually, the reason why I want E and F to be last is because I think it requires a lot more discussion. And the problem with moving it before the table is I want to get that table approved tonight so that if we need more, and we will need more time on those, on the E and F, we will need, and we basically, Mr. Brown hasn't really even been with us when we've discussed any of it. So he really needs a little bit more time probably looking at it. And I think it's better for the community to be more involved with those two items. They're big items. They are going to take probably a full meeting to go through. And I think we need a lot of staff reporting on it. So I don't think I'm totally ready to commit on that tonight and try and pass it tonight. I want a lot of transparency from the community, for the community rather. So I think we need to put those at the very end in case we don't finish tonight. I don't want to be here till midnight tonight. So What I want to do is get that table, which is, I know the setbacks table, the number, let's see here. It's on our old amendment. It was Amendment 10, or it's Recommendation G. So I want to do Amendment G, or Recommendation G, I should say, right before we do all the rest. So I want to do the meeting that way, and I want to put E and F at the very end, just in case, so that we can move it to the next meeting if we have to.
Okay, so just to be clear, are you asking us, or is the town council asking us to pass code without amendment E and F?
Yes, we don't need E and F for our amendments. That is not part of our
I
amendments.
get that we don't need them for our amendments, but are you asking us to lift the moratorium before we're complete with E and F?
It's possible, because we can work on these while the town council is still working on going over our material. The moratorium will probably not be lifted for a few months. We have plenty of time to work on E and F in the next few months. So I'm pretty confident that we will probably finish E and F before the moratorium is lifted, if that's your concern.
My concern is recommending that it would be lifted before E and F is finished. So I'm fine with passing the amendments on to the town council, but I'm not really okay with recommending that we lift the moratorium prior to completing E and F.
Well, I think we've got a commitment to the people who own property in this town, and we have a commitment to the town council as well. We've been working on these amendments for many, many months, as Mr. Brown can tell us. Yes, we've been working on it for many months. I think that we now have to deliver to the town council what they've been asking for, and that's these amendments. These are not part of those amendments. They are, yes, it would be nice to have, but it's one of those things that we can develop as we move forward. And it's part of our next process of trying to move into design elements and the other points that we need to do in the town's, the issues that we have with building. So I am adamant that we keep the agenda as I am changing it, and that is that we move E and F to the end so that we can continue it to the next meeting if we need to. I don't want to just skim through it and try and pass something that's not adequate. That's my concern, Lori.
Okay.
I want to make sure that we've done a good job on those. I think they're very important. And I don't want to push us on the others as well. I want you to do whatever you need to do on the other amendments. And I know Jan and Kelly and Larry want to do the same. We want to give as much time to the other ideas, the other amendments and recommendations. So if we shortchange anything, we will leave here feeling like we haven't done anything. So that's where I think we stand. Kathleen, are you hearing us on this? Okay. So again, I will go back and I will say that I am, as the chair, demanding that we go ahead and change the agenda to make E and F the very last things on the agenda, because I think it's only fair to the community and to the commissioners that we do so.
We have another fairness to consider, and that would be the town residents who aren't large property owners.
So Madam Chair, can I make a motion that we move E and F to the last
Fine.
items on the agenda?
I think I will entertain. Okay, we have a second. And do I hear? And I would like everybody to raise their hands when they vote, please. So we have a motion to move E and F to the end of the agenda. And I would like to have all the ayes. Please raise your right hand. Noes, raise your right hand. Noes, raise your right hand.
I just raised my right hand.
Okay, very good.
I would like to make a motion to complete old business from the May agenda prior to recommending that we lift the moratorium, which is new business.
I don't have old business in my agenda. I don't have it on the agenda at all.
Did not have, right, but you should have
What
put
I
it on
have-
the
okay.
agenda.
All right. We have an agenda. We have just had a motion to actually move some things around on this current agenda, but until we get into the agenda, we can't get anything accomplished. So the longer we spend worrying about what's on the agenda, the less time we have getting that accomplished, which I think is a very important thing. I'm not ignoring it. We got to get to it. So,
I would
okay.
like to make a statement for the record that this in no way resembles any correspondence that I've received from you over the last week.
Very, very well.
Madam Chair, I'm
Yes.
having difficulty hearing Commissioner Blackwell.
Okay, very good. Go ahead and repeat what you just said, please.
I would like to make a statement for the record that this course of action does not resemble any correspondence that I have received from the chairwoman this week.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. I would like to now move to, does anybody else, I want to just make sure that we covered anybody else wanting to make changes on that agenda. We have ENF moved back, but was there anything else? We need to then go ahead and approve. I don't think we approved the rest of the agenda. So let's go ahead and approve the rest of the agenda, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I second it.
And please raise your right hand if you say yay. And
Yes.
raise your right hand if you say no. Okay, very good. Now we are going to go to the minutes of July 27th. Do I have any changes?
Yes, I would like to move to amend.
Okay, Ms. Blackwelder, what would you like to change, please?
Okay, the minutes state that after requesting information about the 200-acre parcel, Mr. Jakubiak stated for the record that the Resource Conservation District is more protective than the RPC. My amendment is that Mr. Jakubiak made that statement prior to my questions. So if someone could insert the sentence to read as follows: Mr. Jakubiak stated for the record that the Resource Conservation District is more protective than the RPC. Commissioner Blackwelder asked Mr. Jakubiak if Mr. Jakubiak could provide further clarification in regard to environmentally sensitive areas, in particular the 200-acre in Richfield Station. The exchange went as follows.
Okay, Mrs. Blackwelder, let me stop you right now. Was this an action that we took? Is this an action that we took?
No, this is a documentation of what happened in the minutes, which was
Okay, the
incorrectly
documentation, okay, the
characterized.
documentation is on a tape, and we don't necessarily record everything that is an opinion or something that somebody said, or he said, she said. We record mostly just any actions that have been taken. And
Okay,
if that's not an action that's been taken, then we probably are not going to change the minutes to reflect that.
for the record, at the minute mark of 1:34:08, Mr. Jakubiak stated, as for the detailed question about Section 5 of the agreement triggering the conveyance, I can't answer that. For the record, at the minute mark of 1:34:29, Mr. Jakubiak answered that it was feasible. Well, okay, at the minute mark 1:34:20, Commissioner Blackwelder asked, is it feasible that we could get the answer to that question before we rezoned? And at the minute mark 1:34:29, Mr. Jakubiak stated, it's feasible that you can ask for it. I won't have your answer for you, but perhaps you can refer to the town attorney. Those were his answers.
Very good. Thank you for that.
And
Thank
for
you
the
for that.
record,
Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
A motion to approve the minutes.
Do I have a second?
excuse me,
I would like to have everybody raise their hand if they approve the minutes.
I would
as
like to make a
written.
motion to approve the
you.
minutes as amended.
And I'm sorry, we have not approved any amended minutes.
There was no second for the amendment.
We need to have anybody who voting no, please raise your right hand. If you're voting no, please raise your right hand. Did you get the vote on that, Ms. Hume? Okay, thank you. Very good. Okay, we will now move to the minutes of August 4th. Do I have anybody who would like to make any changes, or do I hear a motion to approve?
I would like to make a motion to amend the minutes.
Okay, Ms. Blackwelder. Do I have a second for that, please?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so in the August 4th work session, there's a section titled Density. And it documents two densities that the chairwoman mentioned. And then I held up a piece of paper, or actually you held up a piece of paper, And you said, and Chris, Mr. Jakubiec instructed us that if there was consensus on the items of the piece of paper, that he would present it to us. And you said, well, if you can just put a bow on this and package it up, that'll be good to go. So my amendment to accurately reflect the work session minutes says a number of other adjustments to Article 5, Section 290-19A, tables, requirements, exceptions, were presented by Commissioner Blackwelder. Chairman Greengold asked Mr. Jakubiec to package them up for the next meeting. And I would like to make a statement for the record that the amendment suggestion by the town planner in recommendation G does not reflect the densities that were on that piece of paper that you held up.
Okay, I do think there was some confusion on that. I know that everybody has heard different things about that. I would agree that I think we did discuss 7,500 feet for all zoning areas. Now, we can leave this as written, and we can come back and make an amendment when we get to that section, which is what I think we could do. We could absolutely do that, because I think the problem is, in order for us to confirm, we'd have to go back and see the old tapes. I don't know, Ms. Hume, did you ever go back and look at those tapes or anything on that issue?
No, not on that issue.
Okay. All right. I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and let's keep I would recommend that we keep it as it is, as it stands, since I know that there's confusion on what was actually interpreted that night, since it was a workshop and we weren't being real accurate on that. Why don't we leave the minutes, and then when we get to the item, you can go ahead and make your amendment. And
So are
it's
you-
perfectly fine to do that. We can make the amendment as we get to it. Because again,
I am
you're-
not
you're-
comfortable with inventing the record incorrectly.
It really,
and
at the end of
documenting
the
it
day.
Incorrectly.
But it may not be.
Chair,
It
we
may
had-
not be.
Did we have a motion for an amendment? Did we have a second?
You mean for the minutes?
Had a motion, I think, from Commissioner Blackwelder.
Yes,
for
I think we need to move
amendment.
forward.
Do we have
okay.
a second?
Yeah, she did. Yes, I think Jan
And
just seconded it.
second.
Yes, she seconded it. Yes, she did. I think what I would like us to do is take a vote on this and see if indeed people want to agree to amend it. If not, we're going to go ahead and do as I asked, and that is just go to the item and make the change at that time.
We're just making things up now.
I'm not making things up. So anybody who would like to vote aye on changing or amending the minutes, please raise your hand. Any ayes? Okay, we have one. Any noes?
I agree with her that we should capture that 7,500 in there.
Okay, two, and then all and against vote no. And Kathleen
You're
votes
voting
no.
for, Chairman Brown has to recuse himself. He wasn't there.
Sherman Green.
Unless he saw the tape. which
I'm
he could have
sorry,
done.
excuse me.
I watched the tape.
He
Commissioner
watched the
Brown.
tape. I'm sure he did watch the tape. So, okay, so we have a vote on that, on the amended motion. Anybody else like to move the minutes?
I would like to make another statement for the record.
No,
regarding the
we are not
minutes
making
and
a
the agenda.
statement. We are making a motion to approve or not approve the minutes. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the minutes? I will move to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Okay, raise your hand. Okay, and she's raising her hand. So we're gonna, did you? and you're
I'm going to
recused?
recuse myself.
Okay, he's gonna
from
recuse
this.
herself.
I'm
Well, in that
opposed.
case, then we don't have a quorum.
You have four.
We
Four is a
have
quorum.
1, 2, 3. Well, she voted against. She voted against. We have 1, 2, 3.
2, 3, 4, 5. Four is a quorum.
Let's see here. 1, 2. I guess we do. Yeah, I guess we do have a quorum because that's one. I keep forgetting Kathleen's a person. Okay, so we have 1 against, 2 against. We have 1 recusal. So we have 1, 2, 3.
You don't have quorum.
So I don't have quorum on that. All right, the minutes stand unapproved. Okay, very good. And we'll just move on.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
can you just clarify what that vote was? So,
to approve the minutes of August 4th. To approve the minutes of August 4th. And we have some controversy about, can you hear me now? We have some, can you hear me now?
yeah, I can hear it, I just didn't know, I didn't hear how the vote was.
The vote,
Didn't have-
the vote did not go through because we need a quorum and we did not have a quorum. Mr. Brown recused himself because he was not here at the workshop. And Kelly was not in favor, and Ms. Blackwater was in favor, so we did not pass the minutes. So we will leave them unapproved. Okay, that's fine. All right, so now let's actually get public comments. Now that you've had all the fun of watching how we're working, why don't we see who wants to make a public comment? And if you come up, please state your name and your address for the record. And there will be a 2-minute limit, please. So who would like to take a shot at this one? Come on, somebody out there. Nobody out there wants to take a shot. Okay, here we go. Here we go. I knew we'd get somebody.
You didn't think you were going to get off that easy, did you?
I was hoping I could get something easy here tonight.
West Donovan, 3418 Cox Road, Chesapeake Beach. So, bear with me here. I wrote some notes down. What are we calling? Recommendation A, building height.
Yes.
It's changing the building height to start at the original grade. I'm part of the, Chris, what do we call that? The resiliency committee thing where we look at town flooding and whatnot. And it seems to me that if we're going to start the building height at the original grade, especially in flood prone areas of the town, we're going to lose anywhere from 7 to 10 feet of bringing up a piece of property. And that just means a building just loses that 7 to 10 feet. When the comprehensive plan, part of it was to combat climate change and ways that we can do that in town. I just think by changing the building height starting measurement, we just totally lost a lot of what the town can do. Recommendations B and C. I have a question. Can the following uses be allowed in the RC zone? RV park with seasonal or nightly rates, kind of like what Breezy Point has. My next question is, why is a greenhouse not allowed in the RC? To me, it kind of makes sense to have a greenhouse in the RC. Recommendation E, who gets to choose the third-party evaluator for the design review? I think E was the one we moved to the back of the agenda tonight. E number 7, does that statement mean that a townhouse cannot have a single-car garage underneath of it? To me, the way it reads, it does mean that it can't have one. F number 6, this is more of a comment, with the new Beach Elementary School and the height of the Beach Elementary fit into that neighborhood? F6 talks about how design standards and how buildings have to fit inside of a neighborhood. G, the commercial town zone minimum of 7,500 square feet is pretty large for that to be a minimum lot size. My question is, how many lots actually fit into that 7,500 square foot minimum? My last 2 comments, if you let me keep going. Recommendation D. So recommendation D has, there's lots of improved lots that are already improved lots going into the RC zone. To me, that's pretty counterintuitive. And amendment number 7 actually talks about, the town having the ability to acquire land to ensure its preservation and prevent residential development where all parcels that were dedicated for open space, forest conservation, stormwater management, et cetera, and previously approved residential planned communities. If you guys remember, back in, I think it was February of 2021, we submitted 5 site plans to planning and zoning that have not been reviewed yet because of the moratorium. But part of the reason why we submitted all 5 site plans at once was because we had a fear of this very thing that's now in amendment number 7, and that's giving the town the ability to acquire land to prevent development. Many meetings, many years ago now, from 2019 to basically 2021, planning and zoning had discussions about our property and purchasing the property for parks and for also turning it into just bare land, so there would be no residential development. And the planning and zoning board talked about this more than one occasion. So that's why we did the 5 site plans at once. And sure enough, amendment number 7 says right there on the paper, you can read it for yourselves. Amendment number 6, this is just a comment. In the maritime, this is my last one. The maritime commercial district, it says the maritime commercial is intended to promote active and vibrant commercial activities at the street grade level where walking is safe and enjoyable, establishing public pedestrian access to and along the waterfronts in the maritime commercial. So the way I read this is the town is going to require public pedestrian access on private commercial land. And you can do that with residential property, but you cannot do that with commercial unless the town uses eminent domain. So thank you for your time. Sorry if I went over.
Thank you, Mr. Donovan. Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My name is Joe Devlin. I'm an attorney from Annapolis, Council Baradell. I represent Richfield Station, developer Richfield Station, Mike Repke and Austin Group. I'd previously spoken with Mr. Jakubiak a couple weeks ago, and then provided him a letter maybe about 10 days ago, which I believe was disseminated to, and you, Ms. Gold Greenberg.
We have it.
Right. I thought it was disseminated to all of the members of the board as well as to the town council.
Yes.
Because we have found that there are a couple of areas that are not on your zoning map that we believe should. And this does go back to the RC scenario in terms of what the purpose of that is. We understand that it is unusual, in my experience, having done zoning work for 30 some years, that a zoning amendment or a zoning text is being utilized.
Sure. Come on. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
So essentially what we wanted to point out to you all is that there are 2 areas that we believe have been incorrectly left out of the zoning map. Can understand perhaps why, but again, part of this is also to let you know and clarify for you all that this is consistent with the comprehensive plan that you have adopted, which noted that, for example, that stream walkway section of Richfield Station had 54 lots remaining to be developed. That's on page 17, and again on page 19. Same thing, talks about the remaining lots to be developed in Richfield Station. The other is the Crestview Lane, which we're actually trying to get through and start to work this fall, has 48 remaining townhouses. So that one has been covered. Crestview Lane is in the RPC, so that's fine. But the two that I've highlighted here in yellow are a little bit different in terms of the yellow on the right side, block Q. That is 13 of the 54 lots that were approved some years ago. The first 41 were platted a few years ago. The other 13 were left just under their development plan approval. They have been taxed at a higher rate, although not as high a rate as the recorded lots. But again, those 54 together, the 41 and the 13, that is the 54 that you recognize in the comp plan, was part of what you're figuring into the town density. So we're just asking that yellow part there at the bottom, which is the 13, which has been approved, and I provided to you all various documents that show approval of that from prior, of that area of block Q. The other interesting thing on that, which unfortunately, because of my limited skill, I think as much as anything, the one thing that's unique with that little piece there is as you come down Streamwalk Way towards that block Q, there is a stream crossing that is in there. On the exhibit that I sent with my letter that has the black circle, that is a stream crossing that has been approved by MDE a couple years ago, and that approval remains valid today. So again, we are anticipating developing that section, but the stream crossing, again, is sort of in this ambiguous area in terms of part of it's RPC, part of it's RC. And then with regard to the red dots that are on the other one, that those are stormwater management ponds that again are platted, but again, they're now seem to have been put in RC as opposed to RPC. Typically, in my experience, you wouldn't have things that are serving a residential subdivision that's been platted in a different zoning category than that which it was platted under. So I just throw that out to you all with Mr. Jakubiak to take a look at that, because again, it's unusual to, and again, zoning is a different way of sort of restricting lands, but those are stormwater management ponds. We think they should be remaining in the RPC to conform with the plats and before with some of the different deeds and easements that have been recorded. So that's the second one. The other one on the right, this FIDS protective covenant, and I would like to provide to the board one big copy because it's just easier to see it, because even when you go online, I know Mr. Kubiak has done this. This is the original FIDS exhibit to the deed, and it's exhibit B1, and you can see that the dark area there, that is where development was allowed up in here in the critical area. All this below was preserved through the FIDS agreement. That's 201.96 acres, 202 acres. All of this land up here was preserved for development. And in the map, this one section up here at the end of Valley View Drive, that is not on your map. And again, that area was specifically, if you look at the FIDS agreement in paragraph 1, what it says is that, bear with me just 1 minute. Paragraph 1, this was, when we negotiated this all back in the day, that nothing in this agreement prohibits the RCA density, which is that 1 per 20 acres, as I'm sure you know, generated by the acres of land within the FIDS protection area from being used by grantor to support development, i.e. required acreage in support of residential dwelling units at 1 unit per 20 acre density upon land not subject to this agreement. And I can tell you that that area there was one that had been under review. We honestly couldn't figure out a way to do it at that time like we could with everything else, so we just left it for another day. But it was specifically put in here and in the document as part of the area that was available for development. So it's that area that I showed you with the big plan. This one, I would like to give this to you, Madam Chairman, but it's kind of confusing because the one that's in the direct land record is hard to read. This is a couple That area right there is the new street walkway. This is the area that's preserved. You see it's hashed like the other school, able to be disturbed. So we would ask that that also be kept in the RPC zoning as opposed to RC. We understand that the idea of the RC is to recognize those areas that have either been platted or dedicated or deeded for forest conservation or whatever conservation. Those are not within that category. We would ask that you be able to remedy that with the draft zoning map so that if, as and when, we can go ahead and finish those out. As I said, this current schedule that Mr. Kubiak, Mr. Pounds, Mr. Barry, Ms. Wall have been working with us on is that we would like to get the Crestview Lane stuff started this fall if we can, get that done so those 48 houses can meet the 42 houses and that road can get done, that be done. The others would come later. But again, we're just asking the map not be changed to cause, again, that the 58 you looked at before and the 48 on Streamwalk Way and the potential for this over here, which would only be about 4 to 8 lots, maybe tops, but they would be big lots. And that's the one thing with Richfield Station Block Q. Those are large lots, which I know part of it also has been that your goal is to reduce density or keep density kind of where it is. I would just note for you that those are 16,000 average square foot lots versus the usual are 10,000 square foot lots or less. So these are bigger lots. The density doesn't change. We think that's also good for the town in terms of, number one, filling out that density that's on the plan, if you will, and it provides a good tax base because those will be more expensive, obviously, homes than others that might be in the neighborhood. So that's what we're asking per my letter is if you all could revise the zoning map to protect those areas as you take it to the council. We'd appreciate it. Just keeps everything level in terms of the playing field, and that's what we're asking.
Thank you for your comments. I appreciate it.
Madam Chair, can I
Yes.
ask one question? The second area you're talking about is this yellow sliver that's above the word FIDS.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that was sort of, we did the outer boundary of the FIDS, and that's that upper area there that is at the end of that street. Yes,
Great,
sir.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments, please?
I'm Gloria Larman. My address is 2472 Woodland Court, Chesapeake Beach, Richfield Station resident. I am a resident. I've been a resident for over 10 years. I was a condo resident before, and now I'm a single family home owner. I think that maybe one thing that's important for the commission to understand is the history of this developer. When I lived in the condo, our condos were finished for almost 2 years. We could not get our streets plowed by the town because he refused to change from construction pavement to permanent pavement because he claimed that he was still building. He was building townhouses, but he never completed them. The other thing is we had no street lights for almost 2 years. We had vandalism of our cars because, again, he refused to put the street lights in. This type of developer is not really popular with the residents of Richfield Station. And to be honest, when he continues to do all of this that he's planning, the same type of procedures will occur. His infrastructure changes. There are no changes to our infrastructure of our roads and our streets in Richfield Station. How are we going to accommodate more traffic? We have almost 700 residents now, and our streets are jammed with parked cars, jammed with traffic. It's a safety issue for children. It's a safety issue for walkers. The other thing is that we have issues with getting to 260. The only access is one way in and one way out. And there's not going to be any change as to what he's going to do to change that. There's no way to do it. I don't see how any more development or any more construction of new homes, big lots, small lots, whatever. The townhouses that he has down at the end that were supposed to be built 10 years ago are sitting there, and they're an eyesore. This type of stuff is not really progressive for Chesapeake Beach, and it is not attractive for people who come here to see.
Thank you very much for your comments. I appreciate it. Anybody else like to make a comment, please, tonight? Okay, then I will bring it back to the dais. We are going to then go to item number 6, which is recommendation A. And if you go to recommendation A on tonight's agenda, I know there's a lot here to handle. It is regarding the building height. Existing definition is to be deleted, and the new definition would be: the height of any building shall be the vertical distance of the highest point of the roof to the average natural grade level prior to construction or any site improvements. The highest point also includes any rooftop deck, fence railing, widow's walk, or other rooftop addition that is used as an accessory structure. Do I hear a motion to approve staff recommendation? I'll second. Okay. Oh, thank you for reminding me that you're on the thing. Okay. Any discussion? Would you like to have any comment, Mr. Kubiak, before we go ahead and have a discussion? Any discussion? Yes, sir.
Yes, I'd like to tell you why I'm going to vote no.
Okay.
I listened to the discussion during the work session, quite a long discussion. But I was trying to figure out what's broken. Why do we need to change the definitions of height? What has happened? What's the problem we're trying to address? I agree, and I voted for the 35-foot height limit throughout the town, but I don't see why we have to change the definitions. And so the question which one of the public brought up is the natural grade level. When is that measured? So if you take the 2 pieces of property that were once Stennett's Restaurant, those have both been raised. I'm not sure how many feet. I would say 4 at least. So does that go back down to what it was before they raised it? So we use the word natural grade level. Everybody talked about, well, people are going to come in and they're going to put piles of dirt, possibly 20 feet high, I think you said. I can't imagine that. And I've never seen that. But what about the opposite? When they graded the property for Richfield Station and the neighboring property, they knocked some of those hills down. So does that mean they get to add another 5, 10, 15 feet to the height of the building since it's now measured from some fictitious level up in the air? I think the way the definition is originally worded, which is the graded level or the level as it is. Anyway, I have trouble with this with changing definitions just so we can change them, and so I'm going to vote no.
Very good. Ms. Redke.
Well, I can certainly see Larry's point because its definition is not specific. And he raises a couple of good points. At the very least, it needs to be rewritten to clarify the concerns about what is natural level.
And Ms. Burrell, let's not forget you. You're over there. Are you hearing me okay? Kathleen?
Yeah, I just heard Jan. You said something after Jan, I missed that.
Did you hear Jan? Did you? Okay. Okay, I'm just asking you if you have a comment about the building height.
My comment about the building height would be that I like the new definition is more specific because I think there's been a lot of variation. The former definition, I think there's been a lot of variation based on that. And I like the specificity of the revised definition.
Ms. Blackwelder?
I also,
And Kathleen.
I also like the definition. It is a very standard definition that's used. It has been borrowed from another town's code, so it clearly is functional. It will prevent the overuse of structures that would unduly elevate property, allowing for more density. And it will have a better appearance for not, I think the old definition said the height started at the first floor of construction. And that definition was lacking because it had no clarification of how many other structures could be built underneath. So I think this definition is functional. It will result in the vision of the comprehensive planning for a charming, lower construction that I think people will approve of, and it's in use and functioning just fine in other towns.
Okay.
I'm okay with the new definition. I like that it starts at the grade level.
Okay. And if I might just make a comment to Larry's issue on actually raising the grade level up. It's something common that you see a lot in bigger areas like New Jersey. They do that. That's a common practice up in New Jersey. I just saw it not too long ago. California, they do it all the time. And it's a way to increase height is by stacking dirt, fill dirt up and up and up until they can make the height as, much larger than the neighboring structure. So I have seen that personally, and I know that it happens. Has it happened here? I'm not saying that it does, but if we want a town that has a less intense feel, if we want to keep it a look that is more uniform in the sense that you're not going to have ups and downs, and we're not going to have the look that they're having in North Beach right now, then we need to have a definition that is at least something where you've got instead of having the first floor being the beginning of the measurement, which could be above the garage, you want to have it at least at street level or close to street level, which would be the average grade. Theoretically, is it a perfect situation? No, but if we keep mulling over all the little details of this, then we will never get a perfect height definition. This has been used in other towns. This is not something we just pulled out of thin air. This is something that is used in other beach towns. So I am, I'm suggesting that maybe this is probably the best thing we're going to see in a long time as far as the definition is concerned. So I will bring it back to a vote. All those in favor of approving staff recommendation for the proposed new definition of height, please raise your right hand. Thank you. And all opposed, please raise your right hand. Okay, so we have one opposed. Thank you. Okay. We've got that. Okay, then. Okay, we're good on number. Back to that. So now we are on recommendation B. Mr. Jakubiak, would you like to discuss a little bit on recommendation B? Would you have a little staff report on that?
Just to refresh everyone's memory, Kathleen had proposed at the last meeting that various conditions be attached to the uses allowed within the resource conservation zone. And generally, those conditions spoke to development impact and trying to make sure that development was, to the extent that it happened, it would be very sensitive to the natural environment, particularly the terrain or the presence of steep slopes, floodplains, and wetland areas.
Kathleen, can you hear Mr. Jakubiak? Kathleen, can you hear? I'm not sure. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
And, so there were a number of uses. There are a number of uses that would be that this would apply to, and on recommendation D, I highlighted each one in red or orange. I guess it looks like on this page, on these pages, and
Yeah.
then listed the conditions. So these would be amendments to section 29011, conditions and standards for conditional and special exception uses. The other aspect of this are that there were a number of changes to the table itself, because some of the uses that were in the RC, the recommendation was that they be removed or made not permitted, NP. So,
Are you done?
yes.
Thank you. Okay. So, yes, Ms. Peralt, yes.
Since we are discussing this now, I have a motion that I wanted to present in regards to the permitted uses by zoning district, and I think it's germane to present it now. I'm also prepared to do it later in the meeting, but I specifically, at last month's meeting, I think it's the evening we're on, we began to, we looked at the zoning district, and as we got to the, I guess the last few items where they were talking, for example, about sailing school, and that was specifically, I believe, recommendation, let me see, I'm looking at it.
Number 18.
Number 18, we began to deliberate about it was a conditional use, and then we changed it to a SC use. But I want to, my amendment tonight is to change those areas, specifically number 13, number 15, number 18, 52, and 58. I wanted to change them back. My motion is to not permitted, because I don't think there should be any building in that area. Due to, I just don't think the infrastructure can sustain it, and I think it's going to over intensify that area. And so I just wanted to bring this up at this point with my amendment to actually change in the RC to those specific items to not permitted versus the majority of them had been changed to conditional use, and we identified the conditions which you see further in the amendment B.
So Kathleen, did you refer to number, you said 13, and what were the other numbers? 13 and,
It was, Madam Chair, it's number 13, number 15, number 18, number 52, and number 58, and they were conditional uses. I would like to change them to NP, not permitted. I also, I worked with Commission Member Rutke, and she was also in agreement with this change, that because I think originally in the meeting last month we had them as non-permitted, but then we began to allow more warehousing and building, and I think that it as I said, I think it over intensifies the area, it increases the density of the area, and I don't believe that the infrastructure can sustain it or support it.
okay, do we have a second for Kathleen's motion, which is to revert or change number 13, 15, 18, 52, 58 in section 292, I'm sorry, in section 290-11, and it would be for the RC district, correct? The RC district, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
so we have a second from Ms. Rutke. Okay, so let's have a discussion on that one. Kelly?
I don't have anything to discuss. I agree with them.
Okay, and Mr. Brown?
Yes, I'm, are we voting on B or are we voting on the amended B? B.
Well, we're voting on the amended B, which she's amending B. So B, what she's doing is she's trying to amend.
We passed her amendment to B, so we've accepted her amendment to B. Is that correct?
No, she's trying to amend what
So
what
if-
recommendation B
If
is.
if her amendment is voted down, we still get vote on all of them.
Yes, we can still vote. Yes, yes, she's voted down. Yes, indeed.
Just a matter
Yes,
of
I'm sorry. Yes.
clarification.
Yes,
So
sir.
the two things that Commissioner Brault would allow would be game, wildlife, and nature preserves, and parks and playgrounds, but everything else would be not permitted. Is that correct, Commissioner Brault?
That's correct.
Okay, I will oppose her amendment because, as has been pointed out by our advisor, our zoning advisor, you can't, if we take away all possible options for the use of some land, we have essentially taken the land.
Taking the property.
And we need to allow some uses for property. Otherwise, it's a government taking. And so I will oppose removing or making these not permitted. That is environmental science, research, public building, recreational facility, sailing schools, boat rentals, aquaculture, warehousing and storage, so that some activities remain optional for the landowners that possess that land. So I will oppose the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Ms. Blackwelder.
So I think what I'm thinking is I might move to amend the amendment, and instead of not permitting those uses, I would suggest that we designate them as a special exception with conditions. Applying the criteria of the Board of Appeals to those uses will provide a level of oversight and discretion that would prevent the density that Kathleen and Kelly may be concerned of, and I haven't heard from you yet. I think that is a more appropriate designation, so that the Board of Appeals can get the details of what's proposed. They can weigh the needs of the resource conservation with the value of the projects presented to them.
Okay.
So
Do I
I
have a
would
s-
move to amend that
Okay.
those items be designated SC, special exception with conditions.
Do I have a second for that amendment?
An amendment
Yes.
to,
Yes.
You have a second for that amendment? Okay, we need to have a vote on that
I
motion.
heard from Jan.
Well, Jan, go ahead. Do you want to talk on the motion, on her amendment to the motion?
I guess I would really prefer what Kathleen is talking about. And the reason I say that is that unless the Board of Appeals has some pretty specific direction, it could all be for naught. They could choose structures that I think would not.
Kelly, do you have an opinion about this amended motion to Kathleen's?
I agree with Jan. I'm concerned about what will be built going to the Board of Appeals and the knowledge of what they have going forward.
And Mr. Brown, what do you think?
Just looking at the definitions, special, we have SE, which is being proposed as a special exception.
SC
To
was my
SE.
amendment, SC, special exception with conditions. So we would be able to put conditions.
That's not on the list of key here, so we'll have to add that to the key.
Well, did somebody move to amend the
Is that
key
right,
at
Chris?
any point in
It's,
time?
it is still SC. It's just that when we added the content, this yellow box to give some direction, it covered up that, it must have covered that up. SC is still very
But-
much part of the table.
Why isn't it listed at the top? Under the key, it has
Yeah, it's not-
permitted, not permitted, C is conditional use, SE is special exception. And
And the next one would be special exception subject to conditions. SC would happen when you put this new element in the formatting, it shifted it covered, and then the box covered up the SC.
Okay,
it's-
so what we're debating is whether it's going to be C, which is conditional use, permitted use, subject to conditions, or SC, which is special exception, subject to conditions. I don't understand the
Madam
difference.
Chair,
Let me have Kathleen weigh in here. Go ahead, Kathleen, because we are, if you can hear what we're doing, we're trying to work with Lori's amendment to your motion. Have you heard that? You know we're in that process right now. I don't know what she knows and what she doesn't know.
I can appreciate that, and I understand. You know, I'm not. What I am opposed to is the building. I'm not opposed to having a sailing school, having boat rentals, for example, having a park and a playground. What I'm opposed is to building. This is a very finite area, and as we all know, you know, if you change, Commissioner Rutke and I, we discussed this at length, and when you have the SC, the special, I think it was, some of them initially were the special exception, SE, and then I think we had changed at the last meeting to SC, which would be the special exception with conditions. But I think it's still vulnerable to when it goes before the Board of Appeals, then they can determine that buildings will be allowed. I'm not opposed to the parks or the playground, but I am opposed to having buildings, whether they're 5,000 square feet or they're 10,000 square feet in that area. And so that's my reasoning for the not permitted. I mean, we've talked about last meeting about the conservation of this area, the bird population, and for example, and building is, if you're going to allow all of these different uses to have buildings associated with them, I think it's no different than overdeveloping the area and just changing the density.
Thank you, Kathleen. Did you finish, Mr. Brown? Go ahead.
Would you please explain the difference between SE and SC?
Between SE and SC.
Yeah.
An SE is special exception. It's a use that goes directly to the Board of Appeals for review and approval without any preconditions. So an SC goes to the Board of Appeals along with a set of conditions that are very specific to that particular use.
And who writes those conditions?
Well, we're drafting them now. They'd be drafted now. The conditions are as set forth.
So they aren't drafted. We haven't seen them. Is that what you're saying? Or they're the
No.
ones that are being considered under
The
B?
ones that are being considered now. And there are some example uses now already in the existing code that are SC. They're special exceptions and they have conditions. So it would be like a use, like one of those uses.
Okay, and so C, which is what you've drawn up and proposed as a recommendation, is permitted use subject to conditions.
Yeah,
And so,
permitted by right. There's no question. It doesn't require a Board of Appeals hearing. It doesn't require testimony and cross-examination. It's permitted by right, but it has to meet some specific conditions.
and those conditions are what you put in the packet.
That's right. And as a matter of practice, they would be presented to you, and these uses would be presented in a site plan to you, and you would confirm as the Planning Commission that each of those conditions has been satisfied using the discretion you have. And finding that, and then finding that the general standards for site plan are approved, you would grant approval.
So the conditions,
Yes.
under C, we would have conditions by right. And under SC, they would be, the Board of Appeals would get to consider those under the conditions that we give them by right.
Well, the developer would take a detour to the Board of Appeals first to get the approval of a special exception. And they would, of course, make sure that those conditions were satisfied as part of their review. But then it comes back to you for site plan approval. So it just takes a circuitous route, adds a few months to the approval process. It provides public hearing.
But we would get site plan approval in
Absolutely.
any case.
Yes. Yes.
Under C or under any case, we get that.
That's right.
Madam Chairman, I had put a list together of items I was going to vote no on, which includes recommendation B. And my principal objection is that I only received these, and as I think most of the people here, five days ago, of which 3 of those days were a long holiday. And the public has not had a chance to read them and consider them. And so I was going to make a motion to table this amendment until the next hearing, the next meeting, not the next hearing, the next meeting, so that the public would have a chance to read over them, because I always learn something when I listen to the public.
Okay, we still have a motion on the floor, and that is Lori's amended motion, which again, it is to amend Kathleen's motion to convert this to a special exception with conditions. Is that correct?
But if
Could
everybody
we
can
get-
offer amendments, can't I offer an
No, you
amendment to
cannot. I'm
table
sorry,
it?
we're still working on this motion. I'm
Could
sorry.
we get Mr. Jakubiec to read us the criteria for granting a special exception? Because it's pretty stringent.
Wow. Are you ready for this one, Mr.
Sure.
Jakubiec? Okay, go ahead.
There are 6 standards. It's in 290-12D, 1 through 6. The first one is the establishment, maintenance, and operation of the special exception use would not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare. The second is the special exception shall be harmonious in character as well as appropriate in appearance, and will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the neighborhood. 3, the establishment of the special exception will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding properties. 4, establishment and operation of the special exception will not adversely impact the capacity and or safety of the town infrastructure, such as roads, water and sewer, drainage, etc. 5, the special exception shall be such that pedestrian and vehicle traffic associated with such use will not be hazardous to or unduly conflict with the existing and anticipated traffic in the neighborhood. And 6, the establishment, maintenance, operation of the special exception are consistent with the Town of Chesapeake Beach Comprehensive Plan. The burden of proof rests entirely with the applicant to persuade the board that these conditions are met. Basically, it's a test of impact. It's an impact test that has to go through the process of public hearing.
Did that help you at all here? We're going to have to vote on your amended motion at some point here.
Right. I just wanted to make sure everybody understood. And also, I'd like to mention that there are some uses that are going on now. There's a lot of CBOTS activity going on in what we have designated with resource conservation. And I think we're viewing this all through the lens of the FIDS parcel, which should be in the RSPC. But I think that by applying these standards, you could easily prevent buildings in the residential areas. And then in the other areas, you could allow what they're meant for and a lot of the activities that are currently going on right now.
Okay, I think I'm a little concerned about the infrastructure that it takes to, especially a 5,000 square foot building, since we're looking at, as you said, this was a 5,000 square foot building, and it requires a lot of infrastructure. So if we had the worst case scenario and everybody started putting up 5,000 square foot buildings in the RC, we'd have no more RC left. And so I guess I can see Kathleen's point, and I can, I guess we can certainly make it as restrictive as possible, I guess. But I think that is where I'm concerned, Mr. Jakubiec, is that in the worst case scenario, we could see structures all over what we consider is a resource conservation zone. So it seems like it's a little bit incongruent in that we want to preserve, but yet we're going to build. There just doesn't seem, there's just something wrong there. I don't understand it. But anyway, we're going to clear
Madam
up.
Chairman, if I could
Yes,
make
go ahead.
one more
Yes,
point.
go
As
ahead.
we've heard in previous meetings, Abner's has a portion of that property over there, and they've talked about doing aquaculture over there. By denying that, I don't know that they've aware of this because this hasn't been published for very long. They haven't had a chance to weigh in and make their case. So at some point, I'd like to make a motion to table this until the next meeting.
You're going to get that chance, huh?
If I get that.
Okay,
Support that motion because we would need to table the whole table.
let's go ahead.
Till Thanksgiving.
Let's go ahead and
We can go
let's
back
go
together.
ahead and let's go ahead and bring it back to the amended motion of whatever your name is, Lori. Now I'm getting confused here. So Lori's amended motion was to make all of these SE with conditions. And I would like to have anybody who wants to vote yes on that amended motion to raise your right hand. Okay, all opposed, raise your right hand. Okay, so that motion goes down. Make sure that you got that one. Okay, now let's go back to Kathleen's motion. The motion that Kathleen had was number 13, 15, 18, 52, 58 would be not permitted. Okay, let's go ahead and have we had enough discussion on that? Can we vote on that? Okay, all in favor of not permitted, raise your hand. Of Kathleen's motion to not permit. Okay, 3, and all of all of you who vote no, raise your hand. 3, so that motion went down. Lack of quorum on that one. Mr. Brown.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to table recommendation B until the next planning and zoning meeting because the proposed amendments were not presented at the public hearing or the subsequent work session and the proposed, well, for that reason.
Second that motion.
Okay, let's discuss that. Okay. Ms. Kelly, what would you say about tabling this motion? Discussion on
Madam
that.
Chair,
I'm sorry.
She wants to talk.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Kathleen.
I didn't, my screen froze for a minute. My motion was denied?
Yes,
or-
we didn't have a quorum. We did not have a favorable vote on that one. So now we are back to Mr. Brown has a motion to table it until next month, I guess, or something, right?
Next meeting.
Next meeting. Yeah, whatever.
Don't we have another meeting in September?
Yes, we probably,
Wednesday of
yes, we
September.
probably do have another meeting into September. You're absolutely right. I try to forget, try to forget that. Okay, so Jan, what say you on tabling the motion?
I think anytime we can give the public more time to look at what we're doing, I'm in favor of. We can't go wrong by doing that. So I definitely favor tabling it.
And Lori?
I favor tabling it as well, along with table 11. We can't pass the table if we don't even have a classification. So I would move to amend Larry's motion to table to include both related items.
Okay, so the motion is to table item B, recommendation B. Mr. Mr. Jakubiec, do you have any thoughts about tabling recommendation B or any changes that you think that could be offered that might help us along here?
No, I don't have anything to add to that. My attempt was to be as kind of reflective of the planning commission's deliberations at the work session as possible with this, and I don't have anything else to add.
Okay, so there's a motion to table item recommendation B, and let's have a vote. All in favor of tabling recommendation B, please raise your right hand. And all opposed? And there's 2 against, and the rest are for, so we will table recommendation B. All right. We are now on to recommendation C. Recommendation C is changing the permitted use status of certain uses in the Resource Conservation District, listing certain uses as expressly prohibited in all zoning districts, and changing the permitted use status of the use called group home to conditional in the residential districts and to not permitted in all other districts. Mr. Jakubiec, do you have any comment on that one?
No, these are just the ones that the planning commission discussed. I think tattoo parlors was left off, but we referenced it in the plan, so I added it. Also, the plan referenced industrial uses, so I placed that back into the table.
Okay,
And
so,
junk and salvage yards and drive-in movie theaters were also landfills. Excuse me. So I updated the list of no permitted uses
right.
to include those that were specifically referenced in the comp plan.
And does everybody see what it is we're referring to, this big, the table? Jan, you know what table we're referring to? Okay. And then it's got group home in there as conditional. All right.
Just,
Yes. Any questions?
yes, I have
Yes. Ms.
several
Blackwelder.
questions on
Yes.
group homes.
Yes.
So group homes in our current code is a special exception, subject to those criteria that Mr. Jakubiec just read.
Yes.
To my knowledge, we have never moved to eliminate that standard of protection on group homes. Anybody recall moving to eliminate that standard?
Was that special exceptions, Mr. Jakubiec? I don't remember.
No, the planning commission never decided anything with respect to group homes.
Yeah, I don't think we did.
You
Yes, and so
advised me that you
we-
would like to address it.
I don't remember doing
Kelly, to bring you up to speed, we've talked about this several times. They are currently a special exception in our zoning code. It came up one day that they were listed as C, and that brought about a discussion. I don't know how you don't remember this, Cindy.
I think I did.
Yes, you remember it.
I know we were talking about that. Yes.
So there was a discussion, there was some activity at town hall, and Chairman Brown stated at one of our public meetings that the town attorney would get involved and he would get back to us regarding group homes. I know we have a group home amendment further on down in the zoning ordinance. Or not, I'm sorry, not the zoning ordinance, the recommendations. And we can address that then, but I am not comfortable with removing a protection on group homes. Group homes encompass a wider range of very vulnerable people. They can have a variety of different impacts on the neighboring community, depending on their use and just how they're operated. I think it would be appropriate for the applicant to have to appear before the Board of Appeals and explain the standards of their group homes, how they're going to operate, how they are going to protect the residents of the group homes, what are the living conditions going to be of the residents in the group homes, what impacts might the surrounding area of the group homes have on the residents, and what impacts might the residents have on the surrounding areas, and that this particular land use certainly deserves a special exception. And we are now adding conditions, which we will talk about later, but removing the exception portion of that, the special exception, is completely inappropriate. And I hope that no one in this town would support that. So I would like to move to designate group homes as special exception with conditions. And I need a second if we even are going to discuss it further.
Yes, I will second it.
Okay, Mr. Jakubiak, what did we conclude as far as what the attorney has told us on that, whatnot? What is your thought on that particular motion?
Yeah, since we drafted this amendment, Todd Pounds reviewed it and he said he's fine with it as drafted. That is conditional use within the residential zones, not permitted within the commercial zones, and then having those 4 conditions.
When you apply the special exception, it's not that you're going to be able to really keep a group home out with going to the Board of Appeals. That's not going to be that's not going to put a restriction on them. What that would do would be just make them feel a little less welcome. Is that what I'm thinking? Is that what I'm assuming?
Sets up a unique, more difficult approval procedure for what is ostensibly a single family under law.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have real reservations about it.
Yeah.
And that's why I've been consistent with the idea that it's permitted, whether it's conditional or permitted. To do otherwise, in my view, begins to run afoul of state law and federal law.
Right.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, I couldn't hear it. Is your mic open?
Oh yeah, bring it
is,
forward.
but I'm trying to get to.
I think you need to bring it.
Their state and federal law on the treatment of group houses, group homes. Effectively, they're treated as special exception, as permitted uses, because they're like a single family. When additional obstacles are placed in the approval process, it adds additional regulatory burdens that are not otherwise imposed on single families. And so you really raise the question about whether you're discriminating, particularly in questions about housing. Why is it more difficult for a family of 4 that is disabled to live in your neighborhood than a family of able-bodied people? That's the question that you'll have to face in a court of law.
Thank you, Kelly. We've got a motion on the floor to change group homes to an SC, special exception. What say you?
I agree. I think we ought to change it to special exceptions. I think they should come before the board. I think we should hear what they have to say, because I think there will be a great impact, not only on that resident that is set for a regular family that will now be a group home, but it will also impact the residents around that group home, not only in additional traffic, because more than likely they're going to be having to go to additional appointments because you have additional teenagers for whatever reasons that are in that group home. And so there'll be additional traffic on the roads and around the residents and parking and things like that.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Mr. Jakubiak, as I understand it, there were 2 group homes operating in Chesapeake Beach, unlicensed, unrecognized by the town.
I don't know about unlicensed, but unpermitted by the town.
Unpermitted, well, permitted license. And that has not been resolved.
Correct.
Okay. I don't understand, frankly, why group homes are not permitted in any of the commercial areas, but they are permitted in residential. What difference does it make? Our commercial areas, with the exception of Commercial Plaza, are residential neighborhoods. So why would we push them towards residential neighborhoods and away from a commercial area that's essentially a residential neighborhood? So my proposal would be to include all the commercial areas with the exception of Commercial Plaza, I guess, since that doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'd like to add something else.
Yes.
I grew up in Calvert County, and my bus route, there was a group home on my bus route, and it impacted the students on that bus because there was a lot more additional students on that bus than a regular normal family. In addition to that, there was a different atmosphere of the residents of that group home that impacted that bus. So I believe that, from my experience, that it should come before the board so the board could hear about it, and so could the other residents in that area to have an understanding of what's going to potentially be affecting them.
Kathleen, I don't want to forget you over there.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I agree that I don't believe that there should be a regulatory burden added on to the group homes. I think that as Chairman, as Commissioner Hahn, as well as Blackwell Wilder has recommended, I think the participants and the sponsors of the group home should have the opportunity to have a group home, and that they should be able to come before the board and discuss who are the residents of the group home and their purpose. Group homes can encompass senior citizens, they can encompass individuals with disabilities. And I think we can't lock into a certain mindset as far as who would reside in a group home. I think the additional reason why they're in a residential community and should be permitted in that location is they're a home, they're a family, they're joint members of a family, not necessarily in the traditional sense, but that's why they're in a residential area, because it's a home. And I don't believe that they should be in a commercial area. And my last comment, I just want to say that I think it's important for the commissioners to be mindful of their remarks. I feel like there's a certain tone that if the commissioners support an endeavor, I think it's viewed as favorable. And I think we have to be careful about making judgmental remarks as far as, and if you don't support this, you're, a moron, or, you're ridiculous. And I think I just want to be careful, us to be careful in that way, in our remarks and presenting our point of view.
Thank you, Kathleen. Jan, did you already comment on this yet? No, I'm losing track here.
I hear what Kelly is saying, and you have absolutely an experience that perhaps none of the rest of us have. But in my world in real estate, the only stories that were worth talking about were the horror stories, the ones that you couldn't hardly believe how somebody did this to somebody else. So I'm not negating what you're saying at all, but I think there's a broader perspective that we can bring somebody in and have them explain what they're going to do, but then what are we going to do? It's just going to be very subjective as to whether we want a group home. I mean, I dare say the idea of a group home is probably not number one on everybody's list as to what they would like to have in their neighborhood. That's my assessment of it. So I think we just have to be really careful, and I think we have to be careful to be open-minded about the fact that I think group homes should and can exist, but I don't think we should necessarily bring them in for an interrogation or a dog and pony show, or, I mean, it helps to have information, you know, how the thing runs, where the kids are going to school, all of that other stuff. But I just think we have to be careful that we're not just wanting to eliminate them out of hand.
May I add something?
Yes.
Okay, I want and Kathleen, I understand your point and it's well taken. About tone. The special exception for a group home is predominantly aimed at the protection of the residents. The residents don't come to the Board of Appeals meeting. The applicant comes, and the applicant for the group home is going to tell the Board of Appeals how he's going to operate that home. And part of that is going to be how he is going to protect his residents, who very often are very vulnerable. There are whole legal industries built around abuse that occurs in group homes. You can Google it right now and you'll find some. And to lose that oversight and lose the ability to take an applicant who is going to view his or her residence as a paycheck and not really explain how they are going to care for the people in that home and how that home is going to provide a service to the people, I think is a really bad mistake. And it is not about excluding people at all. It's about protecting people. And there, you can look up online also how to make a group home. I mean, any hack can make a group home if they are not properly regulated. And I don't know that we have time on this board to write enough conditions that will properly regulate a group home. And so right now, our protection for any inhabitant of a group home in our town is that special exception and that extra burden of proof that the applicant would need to provide.
Thank you, Ms. Blackwelder. I am not for the special exception because I'm very familiar with group homes and how they're regulated and how the state pretty much will allow pretty much anything. And we would be in litigation after litigation after litigation because a group home is meant to provide a residential environment for, as you say, vulnerable people, but it is meant to not be regulated to the sense that, I mean, they have certainly licenses that they have to go through if there's a special type of group home, but all the sober livings, they are totally, you don't have to get permits. You can just go right into any neighborhood in this entire country. And because of ADA laws, you're allowed to have sober living anywhere in the country. And I know this for a fact. I've had this happen, and they move into any community they want to, and any litigation you want to bring forward, they will always win. And I know you think you're protecting our community with an SE, but actually it's not going to help. I think with our condition and then the conditions that we put on it, that is about as protective for our community as we can be without getting litigated ourselves. So let's go back to your motion. Your motion was to amend to the group home to an SE. I would like to have
not an SC, an SC, a special exception
special
subject
SE
to
with conditions. Excuse me, SE with okay, SC, SE with conditions, or SC. All in favor of moving the group home to an SC designation, please raise your right hand. I have Lori. Do I have any others? Okay. All in favor of not moving the group home to an SC designation, please raise your right hand. Okay. Now we will go back to what Mr. Jakubiak has written up here. I would like to move staff recommendation. Do I have a second?
Didn't hear what you just
I would
said.
like to move staff recommendation,
Which
which is
recommendation
written
is
in number C, under recommendation C. I want to move staff recommendation as written.
Where's C?
Oh, God.
Hold on, give me a moment.
If you look on recommendation C, written right there, he's basically has it all written out as how the motion could be, and I move staff recommendation.
Cindy, can you give me a moment, please? I'm looking for it. I have
Oh,
D and I have a table in between D.
I'm sorry, it's I. Well, I are the conditions. Okay, if you want to go to I,
Group home conditions,
Group
they are
homes,
extremely
it's
flimsy.
I.
if you want to go to group homes, but I'm going under recommendation C here.
I'm sorry.
C is resource conservation.
Resource, well, but you're going down to the group home designation on the bottom. So basically, I'm asking for the entire recommendation, which is, and I just read it. It's changing the permitted use status of certain uses in the Resource Conservation District, listing certain uses and expressly prohibited, so that term, in all
Okay.
zoning districts. Do you see it?
I am missing it.
On to tonight's agenda.
It's on tonight's agenda,
This is my
And
agenda that
it's
somebody
under-
gave me.
C.
C.
Do you see where I'm at,
Yeah,
Mr.
it's on
Jakubiec?
page 4 of the
Page,
packet
thank
of
you.
recommendations.
Does everybody have it? Mr. Brown,
Madam
you don't?
Chair?
Yes, Kathleen, do you have it?
Yes, I believe I just heard you refer to recommendation I, is that correct?
Well, recommendation I are the conditions for the group homes. We haven't
Okay.
gotten to those conditions yet, but I mean, we can address them if you want. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get through recommendation C, Mr. Jakubiec.
Okay, for recommendation,
Does everybody see where
I'm
I'm at
here,
on
I'm
number
here.
C, on recommendation C?
so for recommendation C,
Yes, ma'am.
what I would like to
Wait a
do,
minute, I have a motion. I have a motion.
it's not a motion.
No, I have a motion. I have moved staff recommendation,
Oh.
which is right here as written. It's that.
For a second.
And do I have a second for that? I think I heard a second from
Yes.
Mrs. Rudke. All right. I think I'm not going to ask for any more discussion on it.
Oh,
Do you want
We
discussion?
need to read the expressly
Right.
permitted
Kelly.
uses into the record.
Kelly. I'm sorry, what would you say?
We need to read the expressly prohibited uses into the record because a conversation I had with Ms. Wall recently involved motions that we made to things that we have seen and passed that had changed. And her explanation to me was that if there is not a specific motion on the item, that it can change.
Okay.
So we need to read these items that we're changing into the motion and into the record.
Okay, so then vote. Okay, so then I've got a motion on the floor. And so we'll have to vote it down. That because basically I've just grouped it up. So if you all want to vote that down, then please do so. Okay, so we're going to have a little discussion because I know Larry wants to have a discussion on it. Larry, go ahead.
well, I would like to amend your motion to include under number 20 group homes, the 3 commercial areas, not commercial plaza, but the other 3 commercial areas, to change them to a C. I'd also like to make some editorial changes. You're back here at the very last page.
Okay, well, let's first of all do, okay, so go back to the group home thing because I didn't catch that. Say that again. Group home, go ahead.
Under town center, what are the 4 areas?
Neighborhood commercial. town
Neighborhood commercial, town center, and the other.
Okay, the marine commercial does not
Marine
have,
commercial.
they don't have residences.
All of
So,
those would have a C for a group home.
so you wouldn't want to include the town commercial, which,
Neighborhood commercial
Okay.
and maritime.
okay, but maritime commercial has no residences, so we don't have to worry about that, right? And
They
town
have a group
commercial, we don't have any residents. Well, I guess we do have some residents. No, we don't have any residences in town commercial either. So it'd be neighborhood commercial we would include. So, okay, so we'd include, in fact, I think it is included in group home. No, it's not included. Hard to see if it's included or not.
It's not included.
It's not included. Okay, so you would move to include it in neighborhood commercial. Okay, so Mr. Jakubiec, if we divide up recommendation C, should we just go ahead and just do group home right now? Would that be the easiest thing for recommendation C? Because it looks like we've got too much in number C there. How do you want to do number C?
I think you decide whether you would like to make it a conditional use in the neighborhood commercial zone, as Larry suggested, or the other zones, if that's the other commercial.
Well, I'm
zones.
just saying, do we want to separate your recommendation C because it's got the resource conservation district? You've got a lot going on in RC in that one particular recommendation. You see what I'm saying? If you read it.
Yeah,
Let's just pull out the group home idea and let's just not deal with the other part of it. And so Larry's motion is to amend the group home as conditional, right? You want it conditional and you want to include it in the NC. And we have a second from Jan. Did I hear a second from Jan? All right, so the amended version is that Larry would like to see a group home in the neighborhood, commercial and all the other residential zones and make it conditional. Do we have that clear, Sharon, on that one? Okay, any other issues on this particular motion? Kathleen, what do you think about that?
No, I have no further comment on the group home.
Dan?
Kathleen, could you repeat what you said, please?
I said that I don't have any restatement. I believe that the group home should be confined to the residential area. I don't believe it should be in the commercial, neighborhood commercial, town commercial. I don't think they should be in that regard, in that zone. So I believe it should be only in residential.
Lori?
I mean, I have to vote this down because I believe it should be an SC.
Okay, let's go ahead and take a vote. Kelly, you already commented okay. Let's have a vote on this. All in favor of
Can you
amending,
restate it? I'm sorry.
we're going to amend the group home
Yep.
to be conditional and to be also not only in all the residential community zones, but also in the neighborhood commercial zone, which is your area. Okay. Okay, everybody who is for the motion, please raise your right hand. There's 1, 2, 3. Kathleen, did you want to vote for the motion or not?
I do not.
Okay, all opposed, raise your right hand. So again, we have the motion go down. The motion fails. Isn't this just a
How
fun
did it
night?
pass?
Don't you just love it? Okay, so now we're back to
Excuse me.
group homes. Lori?
Chairman, could you state for the record whether that motion passed or failed?
That motion failed due to a lack of positive 4 people voting for it. So that motion failed.
Thank you.
Do we have another motion to offer up on the group homes?
I'll make a motion to adopt the group home item number 20 on this table as written on our page, which is all the residential areas and not permitted in any of the commercial areas or resource conservation.
I'll second. Any questions or issues about that, Kelly? Kathleen, did you hear that motion by Larry?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Thank you.
Jan
I'm fine. I
And Lori.
understand it.
No.
Okay, so let's go ahead and make a vote. Now, Larry's motion is to approve staff recommendation on number 20, group home, which includes all of the, I'm sorry, let's see here. It's conditional in all of the residential zones and not permitted in the commercial zones and conditional in the RPC. Okay. All in favor, please raise your hand.
You said conditional in the RPC?
Yeah, it says, in this one, it says conditional in the RPC.
Oh, right.
That's a
plan
residential.
community. Right,
Yeah.
right,
All right.
right. As written.
Are we, okay, are we clear
Okay.
on that motion? Okay,
What motion?
all right. The motion is, again, one last time. Group home number 20, as written, conditional in all the residential zones, not permitted in all the commercial zones, and conditional in the RPC. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
And we have
Or
Lori
nay.
opposed. Nay. You have that. Okay, got it. Is it now? It's only 9:00. Okay. I think, are we good on that number recommendation C? What is it in recommendation C then about the RC resource conservation that we need to deal with?
Well, they were identified as conditional uses. Let's go through.
Okay, that means that we're going to have to go through and
Read all
Uses,
64.
uses 13, well, look at the
don't you
table,
smile at me, Mr. Brown.
right, on the table.
Yes, in the table.
Uses 13 through 16 would be conditional. 17 would be not permitted. 18 would be conditional. And then 28, not permitted. Then 43, not permitted. And then 52 would be conditional. And 58 would be special exception with conditions. So those are the changes that came out of discussion last work session for those RC uses.
Okay, any questions or any discussion on these items?
Can
Yeah.
we read into record? Are we just doing the RC now and not also the expressly prohibited uses?
Yes, I'm going back to, if you go back to that recommendation C, that's what we're referring to right now. If you read it, Resource Conservation District.
Okay, so,
And so that's what
and
he's
we're
talking
just
about.
separating those two things
We
out.
are pretty much separating that out. So, any questions for Mr. Jakubiec on all these? Any, Kelly, Mr. Brown, Blackwelder?
We changed them to MP. I can't
Well,
remember
they're
what our
list-
vote was.
Well, they're in yellow. So basically, whatever it is in yellow. Oh, you don't have it? Do you not have it?
I don't have it colored, but I thought that somebody changed a bunch of these to MP.
Well, Kathleen and I.
Well, Kathleen was trying to do that. but-
Right,
Yeah,
right.
but it failed. The motion failed.
Right.
Remember, that was hours ago.
So, yes, I know.
Yeah.
So the motion failed, so now they're as written as a C. or as what Mr. Kubiak stated.
Yes. Let me get you a yellow copy so you could see these more accurately, but,
I will say I'll recuse myself because I'm not following. How's that?
It's unusual. Interesting.
What, you don't have an opinion about this? What is going on? Do I hear this correctly? Okay.
Somebody write that down.
Okay. Jan, let's go. Okay, I know what you are going to comment about because you, unless you've changed your mind, what are your feelings now about what you see here that Mr. Kubiak has yellowed for us? It is part of recommendation C.
Right.
Do you want to make any changes on these, or do you want to approve as you see them, or how do we want to do this?
Well,
Or we don't know.
I'm not sure, but we went through all of this prior to Chris coming up with this, and I don't remember the detailed discussion on it, but I'm okay with it as it is.
And Kelly,
I am okay with it as is.
Brown,
No questions.
and Kathleen.
Okay, can you tell me the numbers again?
Do you have the version of the agenda that is yellowed, that has the highlighting marks on it? Do you have that copy?
So I have 13 through 18 is highlighted. And then, I think then we go to
And then you have 20, which,
28,
28.
and then you have 28,
28.
43.
Then we have 43. And then we have 52 and 58. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, and what we're voting on, I'm sorry, I've gotten confused now between what I put the motion and
Right.
now we're saying that they're gonna stay conditional. They're gonna stay as amended in yellow.
Stay as indicated in yellow, yes.
Okay. Okay, so I guess in lieu of my motion failing, this is the next motion, okay.
Well, it is, if you look on your agenda, it is what is being asked in recommendation C. And they're trying to ask us if we are in agreement that it is okay to approve all the ones you see in yellow as indicated.
But
All
that
right.
allows the buildings back in those areas, is that correct?
Yes, and yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Now,
Then I understand, okay. I have no further comment, I've said my, perspective, thank you.
okay, so,
Yeah, just ask a
yes,
point of order.
yes, sir,
So we don't go down too far.
yes.
The conditions that are attached to each of these NC uses were tabled till the last meeting. Your planning recommendation B
Yes,
on Larry's motion.
right.
So, I mean, you could approve this with condition, knowing that you're going to come back and
Right, we have
decide
to
on those
come
conditions.
back and do that,
Just wanna make it
exactly.
clear, so you're not, Kathleen, you're not approving the conditions. Okay, so the question about whether a building would be allowed or not is subject to deliberations at the next meeting.
Oh, okay.
So if you feel comfortable approving them, knowing that you're going to come up with conditions, or giving directive, I guess, to come up with conditions at the next meeting, then vote yes. So
Okay, so
hope that clarifies it.
I appreciate the clarification,
Sure.
Chris. Thank
Okay.
you.
Can I
So,
ask for one
example,
clarification?
Under, I guess, the number 13, item 4 says, no building shall be permitted. So that would remain, we would discuss that at next month's meeting.
Presumably, yes. I mean, all those conditions in plan of recommendation B would be subject to more deliberation on your part.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes. Quickly. I wanna
It's
get to
just, right, it's just a operational question of when something is conditional, yet there are no conditions, and we receive an applicant for that land use, how do we address it?
Well, I wouldn't recommend adopting this in final form as a C use if you don't have conditions. And if that were an issue, if you wanted to adopt this tonight, you either adopt it as permitted or not permitted, or yeah. I don't think you can approve this table without having the conditions that are attached to the C.
Right. No, I
And
think,
recommend, I mean, you'd be recommending it to the town council without any conditions. It makes it hard to administer.
But I would point out that we've just approved the group homes with conditions, and we haven't approved the conditions yet.
yeah, well, we'll get to it, maybe. We do have them, but we just haven't gotten to that yet.
But like I said, you can approve the table. It's just a matter of, do you recommend this to, it's sort of a stage in the approval process. It's not the final. You still have to work out
Yes.
those conditions.
So essentially, then we cannot approve. All right, well, we haven't voted on it. So let's just go ahead and vote on. Actually, I made a motion actually a long time ago to vote on staff recommendations. So let's go ahead and vote. All in favor of approving all of these on the table.
Can we
in yellow.
please read in the expressly prohibited uses and make a motion and list them?
Mr. Jakubiec?
Would you like me to read?
Yes,
this?
I
I'll
would.
read them.
Yes, I would, because I'm gonna lose my voice if I do.
I make a motion to list on the table the expressly prohibited uses as they appear before us. They are not numbered, but they include casino gambling venues and establishes as NP in all districts. Smoke and vape shops as NP in all districts. Tattoo parlors as NP in all districts. Massage parlors as NP in all districts. Psychic reading and fortune-telling venues as NP in all districts. Adult entertainment venues, establishments, NP in all districts. Sale or distribution of medical and/or recreational. We need marijuana in there.
Yeah, that whole marijuana or cannabis or any of its derivatives.
Okay, I'll read it that way in just a second. Okay. Sale or distribution of medical and/or recreational marijuana, cannabis, and any of its derivatives in all districts, NP in all districts. Industrial uses, NP in all districts. Landfills, NP in all districts. Junk and salvage yards, NP in all districts. Drive-in movie theaters, NP in all districts. That's the end of my page. Was there something that was supposed to go at the end of adult entertainment venues, establishments? I have a comma and I don't have the end of that. From the
Bookstores.
adult bookstores. Okay. Adult entertainment venues, establishments, and adult bookstores, NP in all districts.
Just for editorial corrections, tattoo has 3 T's in it. And psychic has an H before the first C.
Good point.
Or
Should have seen that coming.
Good, good catch, Larry.
Yeah, that was a good catch. Good catch on that. Yep. Karen, did you get all of that?
I had her
The
list.
changes
I
in
had
there
her
that we
list
had to
from
make
last
because
time.
we didn't have
Last
the.
meeting.
For some reason, when we saw medical and recreational, we knew it was marijuana. I just assumed that was marijuana.
I would like to amend. We had on here junk and salvage yard, but on here it says, a previous version, it said the storage of accumulated junk, junked vehicles, or scrap or any kind of junk yards or salvage yards.
I think that's a different. Isn't that a different?
It's the one.
We had it. Where is it? Do you have it in that section? No, I think it's in a different section. Okay, then. I don't have it in mine either. But that's
See,
funny.
Junked vehicles. They just have junk and salvage
Yeah,
yards.
you're right. Every one of these is different. It's kind of odd. Mine doesn't have some of the things in there. So yours had, all right. Sharon, do you have the one that includes the junk vehicles? I don't for some reason. Mine doesn't include that, but hers does.
Was this one you
yeah.
passed out last time?
That is the one that I passed
That
out.
she passed
but,
out. Okay,
okay.
that's why I don't
Yeah.
have it. But you
Is
have
there
it
anything else
Okay,
on there
okay.
that's
that we didn't
missing?
have. All right.
Okay, so I should.
Okay. Now I think we are on a motion. She moved.
I need to move to amend. I just wanted to say,
Okay,
just
you're gonna
wanted to
amend
say
your own,
what,
motion. Is that
I
how
just-
this is going to work?
yes. Well, I mean,
We're just going to go ahead to agree to include the ones that she just listed, which is the junk salvage. You have it, Sharon, right?
mhm. And
Right.
so,
And the storage.
Of accumulated junk, junked vehicles, or scrap of any kind, junk yards and salvage yards.
So that will be included in your motion. Okay,
Okay.
because you're moving to approve all of this.
yes.
That we're just now, that you just read, okay?
I'm moving to approve all of that. I will add so that I get this right, the way that Mr. Jakubiec presented it to us. For the sale or distribution of medical and or recreational marijuana, cannabis, and or its derivatives in any forms, either as a principal or an accessory use, NP in all districts. That's what he wrote. Thank you,
Is that
Kelly.
in the copy that you have right there? Okay, because I don't have that. All right, fine. All right, so did everybody hear then what she added? If you don't have that copy, I don't know if you do or not, but okay, I'm good with all that. So you made your motion. Did we second her motion? I will second her motion if nobody else seconded her motion. And I think we've done a lot of discussing, but anybody else have any questions or discussion on this, on these items?
Do we need to reread that motion or no?
No, because I think you've got this entire list, and especially because it's her list. She's got your list, so it's all good.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to now take our vote. All in favor of including all these uses as expressly prohibited uses, raise your right hand, please. Okay, it looks like we have unbelievable a majority. we have everybody voting yes to that. I just don't even believe it. So that actually goes forward. Oh my goodness.
I think some people in the audience raised their hand too.
We could use anybody's hand that we can find.
When we talk about adjourning.
Okay, so I think we are done with recommendation C,
And that included conditional uses for,
the group home.
well, yeah, all
For,
of
oh,
that,
I'm sorry,
yeah.
for the,
Resource conservation, all of that, right?
that was not in your motion.
I think we did 3 motions.
We
On
didn't
the
do,
3
we didn't do the
different
motion
subjects.
for the rest of the chart.
Commissioner Blackwelder amended your motion, so it included
Yeah.
all of it.
Include that.
Okay, so you did include all of that then, is that correct? In your motion?
You made the
I
chairman made a
motioned-
motion, and then Commissioner Blackwelder amended it to include these expressly prohibited items.
I think you
So
did chime in on that, actually,
Okay.
right? I think she did. Is that how you have it written, Sharon?
That's how I have it.
Okay,
written.
then that's the way it was.
vote
All
is
right, thank
written.
you for keeping track with Mr. Larry Brown. We appreciate you being on target there. Okay, so let's go to recommendation D. That is to revise the purpose statement pertaining to the Resource Conservation District. So now we go to the thick packet that you have. And this is on page, thank you, on page 5 of our agenda. Okay, I think everybody's read it 1,000 times. Are there any are there any changes or any questions about this? Mr. Jakubiak's gone, so we can't ask him anything. Kathleen, you wrote this up. Is there anything you wanted to add to it or anything, any changes or anything like that?
No, ma'am, I am.
You're happy. You're a happy girl.
I'm satisfied with it, thank you.
Jan,
I'm perfectly fine with it.
I'm gonna wait till Laura. I'm gonna do Lori last. Kelly, Larry.
Yes, in the first line of the second sentence, there's only 2 sentences in this paragraph.
Yes, I know.
But it says the RC district is intended to protect and maintain land use in critical flood and stormwater management. Stormwater management, what? I think we either need to change one word. We can either add a word or change a word. It says to protect and maintain land use for critical flood and stormwater management, or add stormwater management areas. But the sentence doesn't read
Doesn't read
as it
correctly.
does.
So would you like to make a motion and add areas to stormwater management?
That's fine. I have no preference.
Okay, so we have.
And or,
I'm sorry.
you could also, to my mind, put and or in critical flood and or stormwater management.
It still begs the question, stormwater management what? Stormwater management areas?
I think he's got a point that we are actually providing a detail to what stormwater management we're talking about, even though I understand your concept. The idea is we're trying to manage runoff, et cetera. So I got that. So what she's trying to say in this, in my opinion, Kathleen, maybe I'm wrong, is that when you're talking about stormwater management, you're worried about runoff and erosion and all that. Is that what you're trying to say there with stormwater management?
Yeah.
What if,
But you're saying that you don't like the vagueness. Is that what you're saying here, Larry?
It's an incomplete phrase. So you could say protect and maintain land use for critical flood and stormwater management. Or you could say land use in critical flood and stormwater management areas, one or the other, but it leaves incomplete thought there.
So Kathleen, would you be amenable to including the word for right before critical flood and stormwater management?
I am. I would be comfortable, but I think that stormwater management to me is just not one specific thing. I think it means, keeping the surface runoff in balance with stormwater. I think it refers to groundwater, soak it into the ground, as well as evaporation, that happens through plants. I'm not going to debate the point. You want to add areas. I think it.
Well, Kathleen, how about instead of adding areas, Kathleen, how about if we just add the word for in front of critical flood? So it'd be to protect and maintain land use for critical flood and stormwater management. He's just saying that the sentence makes a little more sense when you put the word FOR, for, in front of critical flood. It's not really changing much of the context. It's really just making the sentence a little more complete. Did you hear that, Mr. Chukabiak?
Yes, I did hear that.
Yeah, okay. So do you have any opposition to adding the word for, FOR? Kathleen,
No, in the spirit
of making things move along.
of collaboration.
Thank you. I am so happy that you are there in virtual reality.
Okay, and
Okay.
something with more substance. The last 3 lines in parentheses, I'm not sure what that adds here. Can you, Mr. Jakubiak, can you give us an example of where the town's growth allocation floating district, where we've annexed something for the growth allocation floating district? Is there an example?
Chesapeake
I mean,
Village is
there
an
hasn't been
example.
since I've been a commissioner, because if you read the section of our code on growth allocation districts, it requires it to come to the planning commission. Okay. And since we're talking about resource conservation, if you go to the section of the code on growth allocation floating districts, where it says submission requirements, limitations on approving one, it may only be used for residential development purposes. And we've put in this that you can't have residential development in a resource conservation area. So why are we even talking about growth allocation?
May I
That's my
comment?
question.
I agree.
So
You have any comment on that, Chris?
This was added over my multiple objections.
Oh, okay.
Over the course of a year, I've on many occasions advised against this.
Oh, this wording right here. Oh, okay. Lori, did you have something to add?
I'm fine with changing that wording to say,
And we just remove it and make
As-
everybody happy if we remove that?
how about as part of a previously approved residential planned community? And leave it at that.
So is that referring back just to wildlife habitats? Or is it referring to stormwater management, forest conservation,
So
open
what it would
space?
say is, and to ensure open space preservation and prevent residential development of parcels dedicated for open space, forest conservation, stormwater management, and wildlife habitats as part of previously approved residential planned communities.
Well, since it's previously approved, why, I don't know why we need the entire phrase. I'm not sure what it adds.
Well, we wouldn't need it if we weren't trying to put all of our RPCs into resource conservation, because they are fully platted, and so they don't need to be in resource conservation. But now that they're in resource conservation, we would need to ensure that we are not rezoning them or allowing a property owner to replat them under other uses. That's why it was put in there. I mean, we didn't really even need to talk about resource conservation to this extent if we weren't trying to take the RPCs, divide them up, and put them in resource conservation, making them vulnerable. But that's why that all went in there. And really, it facilitated a discussion. You are correct. It's a non-residential district. It's going to be incumbent on our town leadership to do the research required to maintain the ability to convey the FIDS parcel and the open spaces of our communities. So I'm fine with reading this into the record as a non, I'm fine with reading this into the record as is. I'll do the honors.
So Mr. Jakubiec advises against that entire line. Is that what you're saying? You're advising against that line entirely?
I think the way that Commissioner Brown has described is accurate, and it'd be
Chris, could you
perfectly
speak up
fine.
a little bit? I'm sorry. I'm having.
She can't hear.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
having special issues.
Yes, I'm sorry about that. I knew that too. My apologies. Yeah, adding a period after habitat, after the word habitats is just fine. It allows us to administer this statement in a clear way. The rest of it doesn't add anything in terms of how this purpose statement is used and administered.
Okay. Mr. Brown, would you like to make a motion to change it as you're seeing it?
Yeah, so my motion would be to add the word "for" in front of critical flood there on the third line, and to delete the entire parentheses at the end of the paragraph so the sentence ends with "and wildlife habitats," period.
I second that motion. Any more discussion quickly? Lori, I know you want to say something. What is it?
I just want to read it.
Okay, read it. Mr. Brown, can you read the entire thing then as you amend it?
As I am proposing. Okay.
I should say it's not amended.
I see. You just like to hear me read.
I do like to hear you read.
Wonderful.
RC, Resource Conservation District, period. The Resource Conservation District is a non-residential district intended to protect and maintain wetlands, surface waters, forests, and open space, steep slopes, as well as low-lying areas with elevated risks of flooding, period. The RC district is intended to protect and maintain land use for critical flood and stormwater management, semicolon, to protect land for community parks and recreational activities, comma, including access to the bay and its tributaries, semicolon, to ensure that any new use complies with all environmental protection and land use laws and preservation agreements of the town of Chesapeake Beach and the state of Maryland, semicolon, and to ensure open space preservation and prevent residential development of parcels dedicated for open space, comma, forest conservation, comma, stormwater management, comma, and wildlife habitats, period.
Thank you. Okay, there's been a motion and a second. I'm going to ask for a vote. Everybody who is for this motion, please raise your right hand. Oh my gosh. Any opposed? No. Okay, good. We can move on from
They're
that
getting
one.
tired, Madam Chairman.
I know, exactly. Okay. Now we are going to move past E and F, obviously. Can we try and get through G, H, and I, or do we have any oomph left in us? If you need to take a break, please go ahead and take a break. But I think we're going to continue if you all have some staying power. Because if we don't do it today, guess what? We keep working. It just keeps going on and on. Okay, recommendation G. It's to set the minimum lot size in the proposed neighborhood commercial district and town commercial district at 7,500 and set average minimum lot area per dwelling unit in the proposed town center district at 7,500 square feet. And this, of course, relates again to our number, I think it is number, which amendment is it? It is recommendation G, which is the table. So if you want to get your table, and this is the controversy that we had about what we went over in the workshop. But again, unless we made a motion, it's not going to necessarily be presented here. So
This isn't the topic, is it? Oh, I might be lost again. I have a weird packet.
well, it's very, I will say, and I usually don't defend you, but this is a confusing packet.
Yeah,
It is very confusing. So I'll give you that one. So anyway, recommendation G, which is also, if you go back to our amendments, it's amendment 10. So you can see how we're kind of merging all of this together. So at the workshop, Larry, we went through and.
I did listen to the
Okay,
workshop,
you
so.
did listen. Okay, I'm sorry. Trying to help you out here, Larry. Okay, any questions about this table that we've kind of been over 1,000 times? Kathleen, any issues or questions you have with this recommendation G, which is also amendment 10?
No, I don't have anything further. I see that we revised it to the 7,500 square feet. I'm comfortable with that in lieu of, I think what Chris, I think illuminated this, why the 7,500 feet at last month's meeting, so I'm fine.
And Kelly,
Wait, I'm trying to find it. What page is it on?
it is
12, page
it's on
12.
page 12 in our
Okay.
packet.
And I just,
Jan, let me go back to Jan. Let me go to Jan.
On with it.
And
Yes.
Lori,
I would like to move to amend.
Hmm.
And I'd like to state for the record that I want to amend it to reflect the piece of paper that was held up at the August 4th.
well, you have to tell me what it is exactly you want to. Oh, the
Yes.
okay.
So, statement for the record, the following
You're going to
was
have
held
to
up.
indicate what it was you were talking about. Because Larry hasn't seen it. He doesn't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
So you're going to have to go
Does he have
line
one?
by, he has it now. He sees it now.
Okay.
So amend
You didn't
to,
hold it up to the camera in the work session.
I would like to amend table 290-19 to reflect all of the densities that were reviewed at the August 4th work session and were presented to Mr. Jakubiak by Chairwoman Greengold, who asked him,
okay,
to
we're not going to add that to the motion.
Really,
Make
I mean,
this
no one
motion-
presented anything but what
mean,
was
we have to,
approved in the minutes.
we
You
have,
can't read your mind.
we have to have in your motion precisely what you want to have written down and put into motion. And, you know, doing a he said, she said is not going to be it. So
Okay.
let's get numbers down. there.
functionality, straight to functionality. The table had the minimum lot size in the RV1, RV2, neighborhood commercial, town commercial, commercial plaza, marine commercial at 7,500 square feet, and the resource conservation minimum lot size at 20 acres. The average minimum lot area per dwelling unit in the RV1, RV2, town commercial was 7,500 square feet. The minimum lot area per dwelling unit on the table was not applicable. In the neighborhood commercial, however, I would like to amend that to say 7,500 square feet. In the commercial plaza, it was not applicable. In the marine commercial area, it was not applicable. And I did not amend the residential low density, residential medium density, or residential high density areas. Additionally, in item B, the text reads, average minimum lot area per dwelling unit, parentheses, square feet, or overnight accommodation. So average minimum lot area per dwelling unit or overnight accommodation, square feet. And in the Item G, minimum open space for the neighborhood commercial was 20%. For the town commercial was 20%. For the commercial plaza was 20%. For the maritime commercial was 20%. And for the resource conservation, it was 85% as proposed on February 22nd by the town planner. So that's what was on the table. And additionally on the table was a highlight in the RV2 area, and that was highlighted to indicate densities that I thought we would be able to revisit. So I'll start with these densities that were presented. Do we need to go through each one and vote on each one, or do we have consensus to vote on them all?
Okay, well, let me go through and, okay, so first of all, I've got a question here. Overnight accommodation, what does that mean? Overnight,
That
what
would
does
be
that
like
mean?
tourist homes or even a hotel. We have no commercial density regulations at all, which is also a problem and a reason why we should not forward this to the town council. But that was an attempt at least regulating something like a hotel or a tourist home.
Which we have not permitted. So, I mean, you know, I guess you're talking about down the road if ever permitted.
Right, if somebody wants to change that, which might
Okay.
happen.
Mr. Jakubiak, do you have this chart in front of you, or do you see what it is we're talking about?
I was taking notes as you were going
So
through.
basically, it was 7,500 square feet throughout almost all the zones except the low density,
Right.
and 20 acres for the RC. You're always complaining, just always complaining. And then, okay, so you now have a copy.
Yeah, so the just sort of thinking about the implications of some things. The 7,500 square feet as a minimum lot size in RV1 and RV2. Just for context, the standard lot size there when the original subdivision was platted was 3,000 square feet. So that's why we have all those cottages on this.
Yeah.
So around 27th Street, Bayside to E, kind of you see that little cottage community, the remnants. It's all based on that 3,000. So what people have done when the lot size was increased to 5,000 square feet, or that was standard.
She here. I don't know if you can hear her.
When the
now.
lot size was set at 5,000 square feet, people combined two lots to make 6,000. And there are examples where there are 6,000 square foot lots next to someone's house, and it looks like a side yard, but they're counting on it for retirement. In fact, when the public hearing was set, one person contacted me and said, I'm concerned about what this is. And I actually thought that the board had made some decisions about this previously. And I checked the minutes and no, we hadn't been official. But I erroneously said, okay, yes, unfortunately, you won't be able to move forward with your plans anymore. And you won't be able to develop that lot next to you. What you have now is a large side yard permanently. And he was obviously quite upset because they're banking on it for retirement. So there is a pattern of that. And that's when you change these codes, even it looks like a small amount, 1,500 square feet is being added, you affect some people's plans. You made plans based on what the law was at the time. So I don't know how many examples of that you'll find if you looked into it, but I know there's one specifically. So there's that. I've never seen an overnight accommodations being based on the kind of the square footage of the land. It's usually you have a parcel of some size. You have a list of permitted uses, and if your use matches that and you can meet the landscaping requirements and parking requirements and the height requirements, then the job as a developer or engineer is to figure out if it's economical based on what the needs are for hotel rooms. No one designs a hotel based on that, like an arbitrary number like 7,500 square feet. So I just don't know if it's relevant. And of course, tourist homes are not permitted in the zone, at least not now. 20 acres as the minimum lot size. I was thinking about that. How do we handle that? So what it effectively means is that any lot in the town that is under 20,000 square feet cannot be subdivided. 20 acres, excuse me. So any lot under 20 acres will remain as one lot. If you have more than 20 acres, you can subdivide if you can create two 20-acre lots.
But isn't that only in the resource conservation?
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yes. And so there's a precedent for this essentially in the RCA, which is the critical area, the critical area's most sensitive zone, the RCA. Question, since this is not a residential area, there's no real clustering provisions that would apply. You know, you can meet a 20-acre zoning by clustering your houses on, if you have 100 acres, put 5 of them real close together and preserve 80 acres. You can't do that with commercial or institutional. I think the 20 acres kind of, it matches up with the spirit of the comprehensive plan. And its effect is probably minimal because I don't see a lot of subdivision activity of those areas that are already proposed for RC zone. And if you were going to have it, it would be subdivision activity to create housing lots. And the code doesn't allow housing lots. So it basically says, the effect of this would be to say that hold constant the RC district as it is now in terms of its overall pattern of development. There is one large tract that's not an already protected parcel, like in Richfield Station, and it's about 50 acres. And so what you've effectively done is to say that there's one lot that could be created. It's the lot. So it can be used for one principal use, whether that's in a science center or playground or something like that. The uses are relatively narrow, 5 or 6 right now that are viable according to the permitted uses. You've with this type of density, you would have locked in place that pattern that you see out there now, by and large.
Okay, so if we went to I know that you've allowed the 7,500 in 2 of the commercial zones, but not the commercial is it not the commercial plaza? No, yeah. So not commercial plaza, but just NC and TC. Is there any reason to not increase it for the CP, the commercial plaza?
I don't think there's any reason to treat one different than the other.
So going back to the RV1, RV2, you're saying that if you went from 6,000, which you have now, to the 7,500, it would be a negative impact on the current owners of some of the lots, the cottage lots, whatever. You're saying that it would be, they would not be able to use, well, don't they, okay, now explain that one to me. They don't go under some kind of a grandfather clause that would allow them to experience it differently, or I don't understand how that works.
In Chesapeake Beach, there's a provision that says if you own lots with the same frontage, essentially lots that are adjacent to each other,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have enough total area to make minimum lot size lots, then you basically have one lot. So if you have, for instance, 12,000 square feet right now, you have multiple lots say you have 4 lots at 3,000 square feet. 2 of the lots have your house on it. The other 2 lots are vacant. You can put another house on it. But if you increase it to 7,500 square feet, the ordinance would prevent that. The ordinance says it cannot be basically subdivided or transferred or used. You basically have a larger side yard. You can't even transfer that property according to the language of the code. So you're basically locked in. You've basically consolidated the lots into one overall lot. You've lost the ability to put a house on those lots. So there is no grandfathering with respect to lot sizes when they're adjacent to you.
Right.
For vacant property.
For vacant property, yes. Now, if you own a lot that is a legal lot of record and it's not attached to your current land holdings, it's just a separate lot. Say you live outside the community, you have a lot 5,000 square feet, and one day I'm going to build a house in Chesapeake Beach. You're still entitled to build on that lot. This won't affect that.
Okay.
You're still able to do it because it's a
Okay.
legal lot of record. It's a platted lot. You can
Right.
still build a house. You have to meet all the various regulations. You might have to go to the Board of Appeals.
Yeah.
That's why we have houses built on these little lots.
Right.
So this you can make it 10,000 square feet. It's not going to change that. It's only going to affect the people that actually banked on the ability to subdivide the lots that are right next to them. Like they were smart enough to say, "Oh, I'll buy this bigger tract of 12,000 square feet because one day I'll subdivide into 2 buildable lots." So just weigh that as you consider whether increasing it.
And then on the maritime commercial, you kept it at 5,000 and she's got 7,500. Why now? So why couldn't that be 7,500 as well as the other 3 commercial zones?
Well, just to be clear, I only did what I thought the minutes said you approved. Okay, so I just don't want to take any ownership of these numbers. Now it says planning recommendation, but I'm giving you what I thought you decided. So I don't see any
As you
trouble
can
with
see tonight,
increasing it to
everything changes
7,500
at-
square feet. I don't know that it's worth the effort because any commercial lot is going to be larger than 7,500 square feet. It has to be to put a building on it,
Yeah.
parking, sidewalk,
Yeah, so I
stormwater
mean,
management.
so you just want to make it somewhat uniform,
So
I guess.
make it uniform if you
Yeah.
want, but the underlying effect is
And then the
negligible.
RV2 you've kept at, okay, so RV2 and RV1 are at 6,000, at least for the minimum lot size. Currently is what you have, 6,000.
That's what they are now. And
That's what they are
the
now.
zoning code now.
Yeah, right. And then she's added an increase in the average minimum lot area per dwelling unit in the RV1 and RV2 to correspond to the, to the increase in lot size. Okay. Yes, Kelly, go.
I'd like to circle back to your conversation about the 50 acres in Richfield Station. My understanding is part of Richfield Station is in the critical area and part of it is not in the critical area. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And-
But the 50 acres I was referring to is not in Richfield Station.
Okay.
It's a separate tract of land.
It's adjacent to.
It's
Jason.
essentially adjacent to it. Yeah. And
Okay. So if Richfield Station is partially in the critical area and partially isn't in the critical area for the town, how would that affect it for the FIDs? If the whole part's not in there, would it affect the FIDs because parts in the town critical area and parts not in the town critical area?
Kelly, I want to bring it back to this conversation. I know that's a conversation we need to have, but right now I'm still working on this chart.
Okay.
And we're going down to the minimum open space, which is 20%, as you can see, and then 85% for the RC. Okay, Kathleen, are you seeing this chart that we are on right now?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I want to go and ask anybody for either questions or issues or whatever you want to talk about. Kathleen, why don't you go ahead and tell me what you're thinking about this chart?
Well, I mean, it makes sense to me once I heard Chris's description about that originally the lot sizes were 3,000 feet. And the fact that, you know, in the commercial area, clarification that you're not gonna, although I did have an issue with that in commercial plaza, it said 5,000 feet, or maritime commercial, it said 5,000, and the others were 7,500. I was like, that seems inconsistent, but then I understood Chris's point of the 10,000, square feet needed to build a commercial building. So I'm fine with the combined lots and the six, how we've identified it with the 7,500 square feet on the average lot for dwelling unit.
Kelly, what do you think?
No questions. I'm fine with it.
And Larry?
Just to preface it, my house is on 3,300 square feet. It's an old lot. I marvel at the whole idea of taking what was presumably small town charm, the little cottages here, and forcing them to become half of what they used to be. It boggles my mind what we're doing. But nonetheless, my one question is footnote 2. I don't understand footnote 2. The average lot area of all dwellings on the lot shall equal or exceed that set forth above, which is all of those above are way above 2,000 square feet, provided that no lot is created with a lot area less than 2,000 square feet. I don't understand what that's trying to tell us to do, or trying to tell how someone would interpret that.
So if you, it's not very easy. If you're creating lots,
Which we aren't.
Let's pretend we are.
It's all platted, so I'm
but you could create a townhouse lot. You could subdivide to create townhouse lots. But on average, you'd have to cap out at that density of 7,500 square feet. So you can do your 2,000 square foot townhouse lots. It just means now you've got to put more of the site in open space in order to balance it out.
okay, so that means something to you. Doesn't mean anything to me. But,
Did anybody else get that explanation? No.
Here's,
Yeah.
I think I got it, maybe.
Okay, just say that you have a 10 acre or a 10,000 square foot tract. Theoretically, say you have 10,000 square foot, and it could be divided into, well, let's say it's 15,000. You can do 2 units, right? At 7,500, you can do 2 units. Is all you're allowed to do now. But if you were doing townhouses, you could put 2 townhouses on that 15,000 square foot lot, and they could be your normal 2,000 square foot townhouse lots. And the remaining 13,000 square feet has to be open space. So you get both. You don't go over the maximum density, which is set at 71 unit per 7,500 square feet. And you're still allowed to build to the normal lot size. Everybody get that? So
I understand
yeah,
it.
yeah.
It actually
So,
preserves open space in a different form. Is that pretty much what you're saying? You can make part of the consolidated lot be more like,
Right.
would that be 2 lots? That would be one whole lot. Is that correct?
well, if you started with, well, if there were a townhouse scenario, of course, we're going to scale up for a real townhouse project, right? But for the sake of this
Or
example, it's only 15,000 square feet, not a very big tract of land. You're only allowed to do 2 lots now. But if you were doing townhouses, or say you were doing a duplex, you'd put one duplex right next to the other and draw the lot line right through it. Each lot gets 2,000 square feet. Everything else would have to be open space, parking, stormwater management, the side yards, whatever the case may be, or a separate HOA open space if you scale up and think about a subdivision of townhouses. So there's 2 things at work. One is the density that would be capped at 1 unit per 7,500 square feet. And then the other is just the unit size.
you're dividing the lot because you're selling the townhouses
Yeah,
for home ownership.
in that scenario-
But
in
the
that
other
scenario.
part would be like an HOA open space or
That's good, Lori.
something
So
of that
another example
scenario.
would be, it makes me think, if say you're not going to transfer and sell the lots, you're going to keep them as a rental property. You'd have 2 townhouses side by side on 15,000 square feet. Because it would just be like a little rental property on 15,000 square feet.
Or you're saying Baycrest or Seagate, those are 2,000 square foot lots?
Well, those are actually high density zones, so a little different. And some of them might be 2,000 square foot lots. Yeah.
So what is this footnote 2 applies to what?
It applies to
The minimum lot area per dwelling unit, which is up in the next, up above.
So it applies to B.
it would apply
you're
to
saying.
all the zoning categories,
Yeah.
but since
It would apply to a development project? Is that what it would apply to?
yeah, it would apply to a development project. Larry, the density in the residential high density zone is 1 unit per 2,500 square feet. So it's more dense, but still each lot size could be 2,000 square feet in size.
As long as it means something to you, it doesn't mean
Okay.
anything to me.
Okay. All right. So Jan, did you have any comments about this?
No.
Okay. And Lori, we know what you're thinking here because you want to amend this. You want to make a motion to amend to this particular chart. Okay. So does everybody understand Lori's motion? And her motion was seconded, right? Did somebody second her motion? Okay. So, and Sharon, you've got all the paperwork, right, for this motion?
I don't have that piece.
Oh, you don't have this?
I don't have what she was
Okay,
passing
well.
around.
It's kind of confusing if you don't see it on paper.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to even explain it, really.
So are we voting the whole thing?
Well, that's what we would actually want to ask you. Do you want to like separate this out?
Only if the motion fails.
I think the problem is, it's going to be complicated to do it all in one scenario. So you may want to separate out the 2 different motions. You may want to do the open space separate from the. Let me ask you, Mr. Jakubiak, going back to the open space, she went up to 20% and you had 15 for most of it. Is going up to 20% a hardship for property owners, or how's that going to, I mean, I'm not even sure. Can you really measure a percentage at that much detail? I'm not even sure you can.
It's just applicable to the commercial zones.
Yes.
I don't know that it would be a hardship per se. If it were a hardship, someone could petition the Board of Appeals for a variance.
Yeah.
If it was demonstrated hardship.
Right.
So I think the bigger issue is the question of dropping the allowable density within a municipality. Even while it seems relatively small on the aggregate, that means every lot that was 12,000 square feet, could have had 2 houses on it, now can only have 1. And there's real implications about that for a town that's invested in a wastewater treatment plant and a school capacity and all these other things. You just got to think about the implications in terms of municipalities set up for houses. We don't have much density available for future growth, and this further turns the spigot on that. And you got to ask yourself, what is the public goal that you're trying to achieve? And if your goal is clear, I'm not going to substitute my values for yours, but the implication is that you're making it more difficult for builders to build houses within the town on remaining parcels of land, and potentially making it very difficult for people who plan for being able to subdivide the lot next to them for future retirement. And I know for a fact that it's at least one case where that is the case, and there are others you can see by traveling through the middle subdivision.
And you can't add any kind of a grandfather clause. If you bought this property at a certain time, it would not be applicable to this particular. Could you add something like that?
You could.
Because if you could do that, then you would then not only safeguard the original owners or the current owners, but then you would safeguard the potential overabundancy of, townhomes and, all the duplex or triplex or whatever, grouping of little homes you might have that might negatively impact a certain community, the smaller communities. So I'm just wondering if that's something that's possible here.
I don't know how you would word that exception without it having to be applied fairly across the board.
Right.
Everybody within the same, we have equal protection under the law. So everybody within the same zoning district has to be able to take advantage of that exception, unless there's some principled reason why it's not relevant. So if you made it available to the mom and pop situation, you'd have to make it available to the person on Cox Road that owns a 12,000 square foot lot.
Sure.
Or
Of course.
15,000 square foot.
Of course.
Put 3 houses there.
I mean, I know there are grandfather clauses in other, municipalities. So I was just wondering, why couldn't we add that to this kind of a situation and then protect our community a little better? No.
Can I comment or make the case for some of these?
All right, go ahead quickly.
Okay. There is always a one-off situation where downzoning is going to impact an individual. And obviously it is going to impact somebody who wants to develop at a large scale. Anybody with an individual single-family home in our community that is a small investor is going to be able to profit from their house simply by redevelopment, provided that we don't, be negligent about our group homes and our other land uses. They are going to be able to profit just by redeveloping their one large lot. So I'm not that concerned about somebody who is going to subdivide and build an extra house. And there's also the opportunity for an accessory apartment in many of these areas. This was our survey. I held it up in August, 3 years ago. People are happy not developing. People would be fine if we didn't develop. So triggering redevelopment of any kind isn't something that people want to be done in particular. I think that if we do it, then it should be at a density that is acceptable to the community, and B, it should come in at a high standard. And there was a phrase in the old comprehensive plan, and it's develop and redevelop. And that is how you over time and over various comprehensive plans, make an area improve. You don't just put in the highest density that you possibly can so everybody builds the biggest thing at the cheapest price to profit in the now. That is how you destroy a town.
Okay.
So-
Lori, why don't you make a motion that divides this up so that we can focus on one part or the other? Let's just go ahead and do that. I think everybody's heard all the arguments and asked all the questions. So let's go ahead and,
Let me just help people understand what the
Okay.
densities we're talking about are. They're really not even enough in some areas. But for instance, on Cox Road, and I'll just deal with Cox Road because Middle Subdivision is the only other place in RV2. Yes, you would be holding that area in place. But even if you make this adjustment at Cox Road, you're turning 21 houses into 113 houses. At this lot size for dwelling unit, I think people are still frustrated with that. So I really think this is a needed change. There's some other things that we could do to help mitigate that problem, but I mean, this is, if we don't do that, what are they at now? Is it 5,000 or 6,000? 6,000, we're talking about 142 homes on Cox Road. That's what you're permitting. That's ridiculous.
Well, can we get a motion so we can move on?
Yeah, let's have a motion.
Say, Chris?
I'm sorry, I was going to say that I've never evaluated that and came to that conclusion. I don't think it's accurate. I've said so at the last meeting.
Well, I mean, I took
know
down
you
every
did.
lot
Can,
size.
Chris, go ahead, please.
Speak up.
I've not done that type of yield analysis. And if you actually do, and you think about how a property actually develops, you never get the density that you apply when you just do a mathematical formula. It would be unreal. The numbers out there on the fringe, and I would encourage you not to use that particular number as a way of persuading you. There's other arguments that you can use, Lori. That is, I would encourage the Planning Commission and members at home not to fear that all this development is waiting in the wings on Cox Road. It wouldn't be allowed that way. It's a matter of topography, zoning, setbacks, parking requirements.
but I think that's worst case scenario if you didn't have all the other infrastructure that went with the building. So, okay, Lori, why don't you go ahead and make a motion? I think we've kind of exhausted all of our discussion on this one. Why don't you make it for this table the way you want to make it, and then we'll either move it or we don't move it.
Okay. Minimum lot size for dwelling unit in the RV1, I move to set at 7,500 square feet.
Why don't you go for the entire minimum lot size, all across the board for all the density, for all the zones, excuse me.
Minimums, okay, I can try that first.
That would probably be easier. You would do RV 1, 2, etc.
The minimum lot area per dwelling unit in the RV1, the RV2, and the town commercial will be set at 7,500 square feet.
Okay, so your motion would read that all of the minimum lot sizes for RV1, RV2, NC, TC, CP, and MC are 7,500.
Yes, thank you for
And then
correcting that.
20 acres for the RC. Are you including the 20 acres for the
Well,
RC?
that's the minimum lot size. This is
That's what I'm doing, the minimum lot size,
you're doing the top.
doing the minimum lot size.
yes.
Okay. So I think what we should do is we should vote on that alone, because if you don't have that, then I think the rest of it probably goes away. Don't you agree?
I agree.
Okay, so Lori's motion is to change the minimum lot size for the RV1, RV2, NC, TC, CP, and MC to 7,500 square feet, and then the RC would be 20 acres. So all in favor, raise your right hand. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And all opposed. Kathleen, did you vote?
Yes, I said put it in.
Okay, and we have 1 against, so the motion passes. Did you get all of that, Sharon? Okay, good. All right, your next motion.
Average minimum lot area per dwelling unit set at 7,500 square feet. In the RV1, the RV2, the neighborhood commercial, the town commercial. Not applicable in the commercial plaza, not applicable in the marine commercial.
All right, so Lori's motion is for the average minimum lot size per dwelling unit, it would be 7,500 in the RV1, 7,500 in the RV2, and 7,500 in the NC and the TC, and not applicable in the CP and the MC. Is that correct?
And the RC.
And the RC, and the RC.
What's in the NC?
The RC is not applicable.
No, the NC.
I'm sorry, it is not applicable. I'm sorry, it's 7,500.
7,500.
7,500.
Because that's not on the sheet you
I know.
got.
No,
Yes.
that is correct. So again, let me just reiterate, 7,500 for the RV1, RV2, NC, TC, and then the CP and MC are NAs, and so is the RC. Okay, everybody who is for that increase, please raise your hand, your right hand. We have Kathleen, Jan, Lori, Cindy, and Kelly, and all opposed. Mr. Brown. Okay. Now, you want to continue with the minimum open space, Lori, or did you want to
Yes.
stop while you were ahead?
No, I think the minimum open space for one,
That's out of character.
it's not a change in the marine commercial district. Just to prerequisite my motion. And we did change it for the residential, so I'll read those along with it.
Okay, go ahead and read the entire, all the zones, please.
The minimum open space for the residential low density, residential medium density has not changed. The minimum open space for residential high density is 35%. For RV1 is 35%. For RV2 is 35%. Neighborhood commercial is 20%. For town commercial is 20%. For plaza commercial is 20%. For marine commercial is 20%. For resource conservation is 85%.
Okay, did everybody hear the motion? Did you get the motion? Okay, so again, it is 30, a no change for the residential low density, middle density, or high density. It changes at actually RV1 is 35%, so that's not changed, and RV2 is not changed. That's 35%. Where it changes is at the commercial zones, which is 20% for the NC, TC, CP, and the MC, and then it's 85% for the RC. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have, okay, we have 5, and all opposed? Mr. Brown. Okay, very good. Okay, I think we actually have pretty much, now, the rest of it, it looks like is, okay, well, it looks like we've got amendment 10 done. Now, does anybody have any steam to continue on to recommendation H and I? Or do I hear a motion to adjourn, or would you like to continue?
I'd like to motion to adjourn.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay. Okay, all in favor?
Larry got that right.
Okay, good night, and we will meet again. What is the date of our next meeting? Do you know?
28th.
Okay, it's, you know what it is, so be here or
Madam
be
Chair,
square. I'm
there are
sorry.
other items on the agenda.
There are other items
There's
on the
public
agenda.
comments.
Oh, I'm sorry, there
on the
are
agenda.
public comments, if indeed, and before we adjourn, Mr. Donovan, did you want to come back up and talk again? I'm so sorry. We didn't get
I
to the
would.
map either.
Thank
so-
you.
Yes.
I had hair at the beginning of this meeting. Been here 3 hours, so I'll be very brief. All of the changes that got made tonight, I hope that when they get to town council, they're a lot more prudent with the income that the town will be missing from the property taxes, because we greatly devalued every lot and house in town tonight by what got passed. I do have a question on the maritime commercial when that comes up. It talks, I'm sorry, resource conservation. It talked about boat storage, and there's different types of boat storage that can be done now. And I would ask that we do our due diligence with different types of boat storage that is allowed and won't be allowed. Number 18. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Donovan. Thank you for sitting through all this.
My
You lucky
pleasure.
man.
Will Mr. Donovan send us the information on the boat storage?
Mr. Donovan, there has been a request that you, if you wanted to send us some information on the boat storage,
Yeah.
that we would be amenable to reading that, so that'd be a great idea. Okay, so anyway, we've been adjourned here, so we'll have to continue at the next meeting.
So a question about this second letter we received at the beginning from Richfield Station. Is there any action that we need to take on this?
Well, it affects the rezoning map, the new map. And we haven't gotten to that part of the agenda. The question is whether the planning commission wants to redraw the boundaries. I think specifically, Mr. Devlin's talking about removing a tract of land about 15 acres from the RC district and keeping it as RPC. So just a decision you haven't gotten to yet.
Okay. I thought the second one was a different subject. Same issue.
The second yellow area, or
No, we have one short letter on the zoning map. And then we have one long letter, attached correspondence file, following documents, justifying adding 13 remaining SF lots in block Q. So that's part of the yellow area
Yes.
and this map.
Right.
Okay.
same.
Need to say goodnight to Kathleen.
Everybody want to say goodnight to Kathleen?
I think we're, night, Kathleen.
Bye, Kathleen. Thank you.
Kathleen, I want to know what you
Hanging
were
in there.
eating.
I texted her, she wouldn't respond.
Oh,
I want to know what you were eating as I watched
Yes.
you eat.
That's not fair, Kathleen.
Well, she was asleep.
starving, I'm sorry.
You're not